Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman with you live from Vanderbilt Health Football Center. Titans back on the practice field this morning. Parker Kelley is back at our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Titans gearing up for week 2 of the preseason. Seattle comes to town later this week. Joint practice with the Seahawks on Friday. Preseason game number 2 on Sunday. Parker, what's going on? How was your weekend?
It was great. Really relaxing. Tried to stay indoors as much as possible.
Yeah.
So we had Ice-Mageddon in the winter. I don't know what the term would be for this massive heat wave that we had, but at practice on Saturday, I didn't know if it would be appropriate to show up in a swimsuit or not, but I felt like I was going to melt.
I know. I saw the video of you out here, and I was like, man, I do not envy Parker right now, especially they moved that back because of the travel back from the West Coast. But it was 2:30, 2 o'clock was when practice started?
Yeah, so it was originally supposed to be around 10:45. Usually the Titans are really good about getting practice done in the morning, but they moved that thing back to 2:30, and like everybody in the media was like, this can't be real.
Yeah, I mean, that's the hottest point in the day. Saturday, I'm not sure if Saturday was hotter than yesterday, but heat index, once it gets over, 105 or whatever it's been the last couple of days, I feel like it all starts to feel the same, like you're trapped in a volcano. It at least is not that hot right now. I'm sure it's going to change before the day is up, but practice will be getting going in just over an hour here. It is open to the fans, so we will give you updates throughout the show as they come in. It is a Reaction Monday, brought to you by Pella Windows and Doors of Nashville. Parker, you were out here for practice on Saturday, and we spent most of Friday's show talking about the poor performance from Cam Ward in the preseason opener out there in Santa Clara. Seemed like it was a bounce-back day for Cam Ward and the Titans offense on Saturday, which was much needed.
Yeah, 3 straight touchdown passes in the red zone, 2 to Carnell Tate, and I think 1 to Alec Ayomanor. And then during the team portion, which was towards the end of practice, the first drive, it literally only took 2 plays. One pass to Alec Ayomanor, and then he beat the defense on a busted coverage on the second play. And Cam Ward didn't even throw a great ball or anything, but you don't really have to when there was nobody within 10 yards of him. Just a complete bust in coverage, and Alec Ayomanor took it to the house. 2 plays was all it took. 2 touchdown passes for Cam Ward during that period. And I know it wasn't open to the media, but the people who were out there, putting on social media after the fact, I think everybody was a little relieved considering how the performance was Thursday night in Santa Clara, that Cam Ward had a good day. And to be honest, he really needed it.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about people riding the wave of training camp in the offseason of every good day for Cam Ward, he's going to be a Hall of Famer, and every bad day for Cam Ward, he may not start week 1, right? It's like you ride the wave. It's just going to go back and forth. It's good to see he had a bounce-back day. I think that needs to continue into this week. You got practice today, practice Wednesday, leading up to that joint practice with Seattle on Friday. I think what disappointed a lot of Titans fans is Cam Ward was starting to tick upward last week in the stadium scrimmage, then on practice Sunday. And then you got to go up against a different team, and you saw a lot of that progress slip away. The joint practice was up and down, and then a tough performance on Thursday night in the first preseason game. So I think that's disappointing to see that maybe and we'll get into the Titans secondary, maybe it's the Titans defense that he's having a lot of success against and can't really do it against other teams. Seattle is the Super Bowl champions. They've got tons of talent up and down that lineup. I mean, you look at Leonard Williams, maybe the best defensive tackle in the league, right up there with Jeffrey Simmons. He was number 1 in ESPN's poll this year. You got Ernest Jones in the second level, who everybody knows from his time here in Nashville. Devin Witherspoon, now the highest paid cornerback in the league. Nicky Manwari, although I don't know if he's going to be healthy. I've seen that he's kind of been in and out. But it's a loaded defense that's going to be coming in here for a joint practice. And in the preseason on Sunday, you'd like to see Cam Ward show some of the flashes he's shown against the Titans defense against somebody else, especially a talented group like Seattle.
He's going to have to do it at some point, because I'm going to take a line out of Connor's notebook, but I'm kind of getting a little, tired, fatigued of talking about how good Cam Ward has been doing in practice. I'd like to see it in a game type scenario. And for all intents and purposes, Seattle has a better defense than San Francisco does. Plus, outside of Nicky Manwari, they're pretty much healthy for the most part. Right. I'd imagine they're going to play their starters at least for a couple of series, maybe one. But I'd like to see Cam Ward carry over what he's been able to do in practice, because he has looked good in practice the last 2 weeks. But that preseason game was very much an outlier. So I'd like to see him carry what he's done in the practice field to a game type feel.
Right. And that's where training camp is so funny, because, again, we look forward to it all summer long of finally there's something to talk about. There's more data points for all of these players, and we get to watch practice and learn more about this team. But by the time you get to this point in mid-August, it's like, man, can we just have real football that actually matters to talk about? Because it is tough to make any kind of conclusions based off practice. And of course, in the preseason game, who's playing and what are they trying to work on? What's the script? How much game planning are they doing? There's so much that goes into it that you don't have to worry about when it's a real game and both teams are just doing whatever it takes to win. So I'm with you. I'm ready for some real football, but of course we've still got 4 weeks until that opener against the Jets, and lots going to happen between then and now and then. Seattle coming to town again this weekend, so today and Wednesday going to be important days for the Titans to build up and get ready for the Super Bowl champs. I just thought about it, Parker. I don't know how I didn't put 2 and 2 together, but we're going to get a nice behind-the-scenes look of the joint practice on Friday when Hard Knocks comes out next Tuesday. So that'll be fun to see. That we'll get a little bit of the on-field back and forth. What is Mike McDonald saying? All that kind of stuff that'll come out on Hard Knocks next week. That'll
be cool. And we might even be featured in Hard Knocks. There might be a little cameo appearance of the both of us, 1025 getting some representation.
Maybe if there's like a low angle shot looking up towards the balcony where we're sitting, maybe you can see the top of my head or something like that. I know you and Connor made an appearance on McAfee last week, so anything's possible.
I know it was a short still, but nonetheless we were featured. Felt pretty good.
Quick tangent here. Have you listened to the McAfee album yet?
I've listened to bits and pieces, but
me too. I have not been able to. I don't know if I even ever want to get through the whole thing. I just think it's been hilarious seeing like Dan Orlovsky putting out there how great the album is. And I listened to a song or two and I was like, all right, that people are just lying through their teeth right now. I mean, he sounds better than maybe I anticipated he would. I'm sure there's some auto-tune and some post-production magic going on there, but I thought it was hilarious. All these people talking about the great lines and how good of a singer Pat McAfee is. I'm like, all right, you guys are just making stuff up now.
It's okay. Just because he's your colleague at ESPN.
Right.
And when you are as successful as Pat McAfee is, that affords you the opportunities to do different things. And because people, there are, he's a polarizing figure, but as he says in the album. You're right. That's what's the name of the album? Diary of a Polarizing Figure. Well, there are a lot of people that like him, so there are going to people that say that. But when he released Dookie, I remember listening to it. I'm like,
what is Dookie?
Yeah, I don't know what Dookie means, but I really like the line where he's like, "We're all the way in Eugene." I like that part, but other than that,
Yeah, I gotta say, Pat McAfee will not be on my Spotify Wrap this year. I can promise you that. I listened to, I think, a song and a half, and I was like, meh, I don't need to continue to do this.
He did record in Nashville, I was told.
Oh, really? Yeah, I mean, I guess that makes sense.
I don't know if it was the whole album he recorded here, but he wrote with some people in Nashville, recorded a little bit in Nashville.
That makes sense. I mean, I'm sure he's here a decent amount, and Indianapolis isn't too far. Dustin in Hopkinsville says, is Bits and Pieces the name of one of the songs or literally Bits and Pieces of the album? Bits and Pieces of the album. I don't think that's one of the songs, but I couldn't tell you that for sure. I probably listened to a song and a half on Friday night, and I was like, that's enough for me. Don't need to hear anything else. 615-737-1025 is the phone number if you want to text or call. Our phone line's driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Joey from Gallatin says, headed to training camp with my dad. Let's go. We are excited to have the fans out here. It makes things easier for us, Parker, because at least when the fans are out here, I can react a little bit to what's going on the field. Like, obviously can't give everything that's going on, but when the fans aren't out here, I just have to wait. And usually the show's over before practice even ends, so I don't even get to react to any of it until the next day. So it is nice when fans are out here. We can actually tell you a little bit about what's going on, which will be fun.
Yeah, no, it's really exciting, and hopefully Cam Ward's able to stack another day. And big week this week with Seattle coming to town. It'll be a really good test for him. But man, I am excited for that joint practice on Friday.
Yes, that will be fun on Friday. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. We are going to get into the secondary coming up next because we spent most of Friday, as expected, talking about Cam Ward and his struggles on Thursday. But maybe more concerning is the way the starting secondary played against the backups for San Francisco. So we'll get into that coming up next. Also, some injuries for the Titans. Jalen Harrell, Jaron Kanik, both out for the season. We'll talk about those two players who maybe steps into those guys' roles who are expected to be depth players on the 53. All of that coming up here in hour number 1. Live from Titans training camp today. Practice gets going in just over an hour. We'll have updates throughout the day. Coverage of training camp is presented by Tennessee Brewworks, Perman Energy, the Music City Kickoff Game, Twin Peaks Restaurants, Perman Tractor and Equipment, Nelson's Greenbrier Distillery, and Tri-State Water, Power, and Air. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelley with you on this Reaction Monday. Next man up, 102.5 The Game.
I don't want to use the word panic, but maybe concerned, or do you think that there could be a better performance by them?
Well,
specifically.
Yeah, it's just continuing the rep what we're asking them to accomplish, understanding formations. You're not game planning, so you're not really recognizing formations, recognizing tendencies as we go. But at the same time, just from a man coverage standpoint, being able to win your one-on-ones when those one-on-ones are presented. there's never panic. But is there urgency? There's always urgency from the second we stepped on the football field till the day the season's over. There's going to be urgency to try to get better.
What you've seen as of late, would you say the urgency needs to?
If you're waiting till now to pick up your urgency, you're already late. So our guys have been working relentlessly. I know we do drills every week, every day. It's just taking the drill work to the practice field, from indo to teamwork to game day, and just trying to find ways to hone in on your craft.
That was Robert Saleh on Saturday talking about the poor performance from his secondary on Thursday in San Francisco. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelley, next man up, 102.5 The Game. Is that Dookie?
That is Dookie.
I got to say, I've never heard that. Maybe I have to go back and listen to his original to really understand the new album that came out from Pat McAfee. Anyway, Robert Saleh saying there's a sense of urgency with the starting secondary. I do think on paper, when you looked at this team, you said, yeah, that starting secondary with the investment they've put into it and what we've heard about those players, there's a lot of excitement. Amani Hooker coming off a down year, but we've seen him be successful at the NFL level for the Titans over the past 7 seasons. With Alontae Taylor and Cordell Flott, you sign those guys to over $100 million worth of total money this offseason in free agency. You expect that they're going to be starting caliber corners. And then the young guys, Kevin Winston, Marcus Harris. I mean, I've really only heard rave reviews about them throughout the offseason. I don't know about you, Parker, but when TD comes on with us and we asked him, who do you think is going to step up this year among the young guys? Kevin Winston was always one of his answers. We've heard the coaching staff rave about Marcus Harris as one of the prototypical guys that they like to use in the nickel. It sounds good on paper, but the first real look we saw about the secondary on Thursday night in Santa Clara, I know they weren't game planning, but you're facing Curtis Rourke, Deshaun Stribling, and a bunch of guys that I've never heard of before, and Cordell Flott's given up 6 catches on 6 targets for 74 yards and also a pass interference penalty. Didn't look good on Thursday night, but how concerned are you about this starting secondary heading towards the new season?
I am concerned. I'm not concerned about Kevin Winston because I think he has the highest upside of anybody in that secondary. I mean, if he didn't have the injury during his last few seasons at Penn State, that's a first round pick. So I believe he has the upside there, and that's great value for the Titans getting him in the 3rd round. Not really concerned about Alontae Taylor, but Cordell Flott again in practice. He was the guy that gave up the long touchdown to Alec Manor, and honestly, he didn't have a great day on Saturday. And then Marcus Harris, I am also high on Marcus Harris, but I just cannot get out of my head the fact that he didn't wrap up on Thursday night versus the 49ers. That's something that's kind of been in the back of my mind when you're constantly thudding and you're not bringing to the ground. I wonder for, guys like outside of Jeffrey Simmons and John Franklin Myers, does that hurt the fact when they have to tackle in a game?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point. And with the starting secondary, I agree with you. Like Marcus Harris, 6th round pick from last year who showed some promise last season, but I think that was also a spot that we expected them to upgrade or at least add some competition to. You can't say, like when we talk about the offensive line, we talk about there really wasn't any significant investment this offseason in the offensive line. You can't say that about the secondary. Again, they signed 2 guys to big deals in free agency with Taylor and Flott, but I did expect them to add more young talent there, and I think what we've seen so far, it's pretty clear. Even if Cordell Flott, which I would expect Cordell Flott is going to look better than he did on Thursday night, and that may seem counterintuitive because the talent level is only going to go up, but he's coming off his best season as a pro in New York. I think that is probably more of an outlier than what we're going to see in the season. That doesn't mean he's going to be an all-pro level player. I don't think that's what you can expect from Cordell Flott. He's a Band-Aid, and I think he's somebody that you hope is going to play competent enough quarterback or cornerback for you for the next couple of years so that you can draft guys who eventually step into those roles and replace them and can be higher ceiling players. I think Cordell Flott's going to be better than what we saw on Thursday night, But I also don't think that he's going to be a guy that you look back and say, man, what a steal with that deal for 3 years, $45 million. I think at this point, you're just hoping that he's not a liability out there.
I definitely do not view Cordell Flott as a future piece, a future building foundational piece for this team. Alontae Taylor, he's in his prime right now, but I don't know how much longer he has in his prime. I view both of them when they signed them as Band-Aids, because you're not building a foundation of a team through free agency. You build it through the draft. And, guys like Kevin Winston and Marcus Harris, I view them both as having the potential to be foundational pieces within the secondary. But you're getting guys like Alontae Taylor and Cordell Flott to elevate the floor of the roster so that when the time comes and you need to draft and develop guys, you can do that in future drafts. That's how I've always kind of viewed it, especially with the deals that they signed. Just because you signed them, Alontae Taylor was a 4-year deal?
3-year deal.
3-year deal.
Both were 3.
Right. So I view both of these guys as bridges until you can draft corners to develop.
Yeah, and by signing those deals, it allowed you to not have cornerback being a top-of-the-list red flag need. Because if you remember the end of last year, cornerback was probably the weakest position on this team, and that's saying a lot on a 3-14 team. It was horrible. There were guys that you'd never heard of who were taking snaps and starting in those final couple of games of the year. You had to address cornerback. By signing Flott and signing Taylor, it allows you to use your draft picks elsewhere. It allows you to take Carnell Tate instead of maybe, oh man, who's going to start at cornerback if we don't take Mansour Delane here or whoever it ended up being with your second pick, Keldrick Falk. You can take him instead of being forced to go get a cornerback. Taylor and Flott were necessary pickups this offseason. You had to go out there and get starting cornerbacks. That doesn't mean they're going to be superstars. I think Taylor has shown a decent amount in practice that makes you think that he's going to be a solid player this year. I mean, the battles between him and Carnell Tate have been fun to watch. Of course, Tate has gotten his, and those ones are more viral, right? Like you see more of them. They get more run because it's the 4th overall pick having a big play. And you might look and say, oh man, he got Taylor there. But there's been plenty of times where Alontae Taylor's gone up and made a play on the football in a one-on-one opportunity with Carnell Tate. So I'm less worried about Taylor, even though he did have a couple times where his man was probably a little more open than you would have liked on Thursday night in San Francisco. Flott, I think, is the one that concerns you a little bit more, considering that last year was his best year as a pro, but before that, it was kind of up and down for him, and it really did not look good back on Thursday night when he was matched up with Deshaun Stribling.
No, not at all. And his performance on Saturday, I'd say it was Cam Ward and Cordell Flott, two of the guys that absolutely needed to have a bounce back practice. And Cam Ward did with the 3 touchdowns in red zone, 2 in team, but Cordell Flott, it wasn't exactly impressive, inspiring, because he gave up some passes and he gave up some deep passes. So it was more of the same from Thursday night, which was, I was hoping to see, like I said, a bounce back performance from him, and you just didn't get that on Saturday.
Yeah, and this isn't to say that Cordell Flott has been a liability the entire training camp and offseason so far. I think you've seen some good things out of Cordell Flott. I've noticed Cordell Flott a couple of times with sticky coverage in practice, and so it isn't publicized as much as Cam Ward's good days, but Cordell Flott has had good days too. Again, I think Thursday is going to end up being more of an outlier for Cordell Flott, but as a whole, the secondary did not look good. They were giving up way too many easy passes for a guy like Curtis Rourke and some of the receivers they had out there. Again, Stribling's going to be a good player, but I probably couldn't name any of the other guys who were out there on Thursday night for the 49ers. You would have expected your starting secondary to have a better showing. Doesn't mean it's going to be a disaster, but as Robert Saleh said, I think there is a sense of urgency of that wasn't good enough, and when the regular season rolls around, that kind of performance might get you beat.
Yes, and with this defensive line, you're hoping that with the rotation they run, they can get to the quarterback a lot faster, which would take a lot less pressure off the secondary. But there are going to be times where Jeffrey Simmons may not be out there. It may be one of the reps that he's off, and your defensive line is not able to get to the quarterback as much, and you need your secondary to be able to cover. And that's when it's important that guys like Cordell Flott don't give up big plays down the field. But the hope is that the strength of this defense is reliant upon your front seven. They're able to get to the quarterback quick and that takes a lot of pressure off of Alontae Taylor and Cordell Flott.
615-737-1025 is our phone number. Trevor on the text line says, Flott last year, let's chill out. It's a screenshot from Twitter of lowest passer rating allowed when targeted last season. Cordell Flott was 9th in the league. So that's what I was saying. He's coming off his best year as a pro. In a contract year, you've got to hope that he's ascending, and it wasn't just a flash in the pan when he needed the big deal heading into free agency. That's all I'm saying. Again, he's coming off his best year, and he's young enough that you think there may still be more growth, more progression yet to come, but not a good first showing in front of the Titans fan base on Thursday in the preseason game against the 49ers. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. Let's go to the phone lines. Vandy Clay is called in. Clay, thanks for calling. Good morning.
Jake, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you, Clay?
I have something for Parker off the top, if I can.
Okay.
Let's hear it.
Parker, after you and Tony's little bit, I have one for you. So the Vandy Tennessee football game in November, I have a Diego Pavia t-shirt that would look really good on you. So if Vandy wins, you go to breakfast and you wear that t-shirt for me.
See, it appears, Jake, that I'm just a hotbed for Vandy Tennessee bets after the way the first one went. I made the announcement. As for right now, I'm retiring from making bets on the air after the last one. I was too embarrassed.
Anyway, guys, I did watch a little bit of the game. I'll say this. If you're not going to be – I do think they're going to be better. But if you're not going to be a winning football team, you might as well look good. I love the uniform.
Yep. They looked great. That was if there was a highlight of the night, I think that was probably it. The uniforms looked great on TV.
I assume that's going to be with a white jersey. I assume that's going to be the road uniform. Is that correct?
Yeah, I would guess they would rotate the pants and the combinations a little bit more than they did last year. Like last year, they had 2 sets of uniforms. It was white tops, light blue bottoms, or light blue tops, white bottoms. I would think they might mix those up a little bit more, and you might see the all whites, the all blues throughout the season.
What do you guys think about Cam? I think this is a really important year for him. He needs to show improvement. If he doesn't show improvement, then, maybe that's when people say, well, he's not the guy. Do y'all agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a really important year for Cam Ward, and we've talked about it before, that he's going to get a longer leash because you picked him first overall, and Mike Borgonzi, basically his biggest move, and you have the number 1 pick, it's going to be one of your biggest moves at the very least, was taking him first overall and turning down that trade offer from the Giants. So they're going to give him every chance to succeed. So I don't think it's like a hot seat year for Cam Ward of like he's got to be elite or they're moving on. But I do think that he's got to start showing improvement for the Titans to really believe that he's going to be their franchise quarterback for a long time.
And Trubisky, you think, will be the backup?
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, that's a given, 100%.
So are they going to try to trade Will Levis?
They're going to try to.
Who knows if they're going to find a trade partner, but they're going to try.
Yeah, I don't know if they're going to get much for him,
Yeah, based on what we've seen in practice in the preseason so far, I'm going to say that at best you might get somebody saying just to avoid the waiver process, they'll give you a 7th. Like that's kind of what you're hoping for right now, which is basically what happened with Malik Willis was Titans said they were going to cut him, and Matt LaFleur and Brian Gutekunst and Green Bay basically said, hey, we're worried somebody's going to snag him on waivers in front of us. We'll give you a 7th round pick to make sure we get him. I wonder if that might happen with Will Levis.
Yeah. Great show, guys. Have a good day.
Thanks for the call, Clay. We'll get into some Vandy stuff coming up later on. Clark Lee spoke over the weekend after Vandy's first scrimmage and says he's not ready to name a starting quarterback. We'll get into that and much more. There was also a podcast clip from The Athletic that has made the rounds among Vandy fans this weekend, and I wanted to push back on something Bruce Feldman had to say. We'll do that in hour number 2. We'll keep talking Titans on the other side. the top end talent in the secondary is a concern for sure. The depth might be more of a concern. We'll get into that coming up next. 615-737-1025. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelley, next man up. 1025 The Game. Next man up, 1025 The Game. Jake Lyman live at Vanderbilt Health Football Center. Titans training camp continues. Practice coming up in just under 45 minutes. Titans getting set for week 2 of the preseason. The Seattle Seahawks, Super Bowl champs, coming to town Friday for joint practices. Preseason game on Sunday night. We're going through the secondary here. Quickly before we get back into that, Rich Cimini of who covers the Jets for ESPN put out there earlier that Breece Hall went down in practice with, he said, wasn't touched, non-contact. It seems like it was minor. Aaron Glenn says he thinks it's a strained groin, won't be a big deal. So something important there to note for the Titans' Week 1 opponent, the Jets. Breece Hall, one of their more dynamic playmakers. Seems like it's less serious than initially thought when the first tweet, it looked like maybe was going to be a season-ending injury. It said Breece Hall just goes down untouched. Strained groin is about as good of an outcome as you can have there if you're the Jets, Parker.
Oh, yeah, because when you hear something like that, you usually, the first thing you go to is an ACL or MCL or whatever.
Right.
It just seems like the amount of injuries that we're getting this year in the preseason. I can't remember a preseason like this. Just injuries galore around the NFL.
I know. Again, it's like maybe we're just forgetting from previous years and its recency bias, but it does feel like there's been a ton of big-time injuries, whether it's season-ending or just missing a lot of time. Teams going to be without some key players early on in the year. Also saw some suspensions come down this week. James Pierce going to be suspended 8 games for the incident that occurred with his girlfriend, Rakia Jackson, former Lady Vol, and now she's with the Sparks, I want to say, in the WNBA. So that was the big news for suspensions this weekend. Titans also had a player suspended. Nazeeh Johnson suspended for 6 games for violating the team's performance-enhancing drug policy. He did come out with a statement and said it was a fertility drug that he was taking that had a banned substance that he did not know about, but suspended 6 games. And we were just talking about the secondary at the top, the starters, and how concerned we are after their performance against the Niners and Curtis Rourke back on Thursday. The depth gets a little bit thinner after the Johnson suspension. Not that he was expected to play a huge role for this team, but behind those top guys, I'm not sure you feel all that confident in cornerbacks 4 through 6 and safeties 3 and 4 as well. And it just gets a little bit thinner with this news about Johnson.
Because once you get past your starters, Alontae Taylor and Cordell Flott, it's guys like Micah Robinson and Josh Williams, who, by the way, still had the gold do not contact jersey on Saturday. Keydrane Callaghan, players like that who are undrafted free agents 2 years ago. So it is thin once you get past the starters. And from what you saw from the starters on Thursday night, again, it wasn't inspiring. It wasn't encouraging. So when you get past that and you get to the depth, it kind of is what it is. With the Nazeeh Johnson, there was no guarantees that he was even going to make the roster this year.
Right.
But obviously it hurts losing depth pieces early on before the season even gets going.
Yeah, I don't even know if he makes the 53, but like when you look at the 2 deep here and you're starting 5, we went through them in the last segment. Flott, Hooker, Winston, Taylor, Harris. On paper, you felt pretty good about it. I think that feeling is soured after the performance in Santa Clara. But the next 5 guys on the 2 deep, Keydrane Callaghan, Kendall Brooks, Tony Adams, Josh Williams, Jalen McMurray. I think Williams and Adams make you feel okay. I mean, Adams, again, familiar with the Saleh system, played with him in New York. Williams, a Borgonzi guy that he helped draft, they brought in to be a depth piece. And I can include Micah Robinson in there as well, who showed some flashes. But man, if you're an injury or 2 away, which, again, you're not going to get through a whole season with your entire starting secondary staying healthy, I do wonder if no matter how good this front 7 is, that secondary might be a liability throughout the season.
And it has been the last couple of years, especially last year. I mean, once you got towards the back half of the regular season, you were running a bunch of guys out there who were on your practice squad that you just picked up during the season. So you're hoping that it doesn't resort to that again this year. But yeah, the depth really across the roster outside of receiver and defensive line, I mean, it is a concern, not just with the secondary.
Yeah, I mean, just like Cam, we talked about on Friday, way too early to hit the panic button. We're going to see these guys continue to develop throughout the last few weeks of training camp and into the regular season. Guys are not going to be the same player they are right now in October, November. There's going to be development. There's going to be shaking off of the rust. There's going to be settling into new systems. But I do think there are valid concerns in the secondary about all 5 starters. Hooker, is he starting to decline as a player after last year? Winston, we still haven't really seen him healthy and consistent yet. You do have to see it before you can truly believe it. Taylor and Flott both left more to be desired in their first preseason game on Thursday. And then Marcus Harris, a 6th-round rookie that you hope is going to develop, but you really just don't know. So there's valid concerns about all those guys, and the depth, of course, is an issue. The secondary turning into more of a weak spot than I thought. Again, too early to hit the panic button, but I think with what Robert Saleh said, there needs to be a sense of urgency because that group was not good enough last week.
I did like his answer, and I thought he answered well, talking about if you're just now developing that sense of urgency and we're, halfway through the month of August, 2 more preseason games, and then it's go time with the regular season, then you're already late. And I think that these guys are truly, I don't think it's a work ethic issue or anything like that. It's just when they needed to perform in the preseason game on Thursday, some guys didn't, but that doesn't mean they're not trying. But that's also expected when you're playing at this level professionally.
615-737-1025 is the phone number. Keegan, we haven't heard from Keegan in a while. He texts in, when we say Taylor Flott Harris, it looks pretty good on paper. Is that in comparison to the rest of the league or to our roster last year? Yeah, probably to the roster last year, but I'm saying in terms of what you've invested. You spent big money on Taylor and Flott. They've raved about Harris. Like, in terms of what the coaching staff is saying and what you've put into that secondary, I think on paper, before you saw them on the field, it looks good. It's just it's got to all work together. And with Robert Saleh's defense, the front seven is important. That front four, that's where it starts. But you got to give those guys a chance to go hunt. And if you're not covering and you're not making it difficult on quarterbacks, it's going to be more difficult for those guys up front to go and get to the quarterback. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. If you want to text or call, our phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Again, Titans getting ready to hit the practice field in about 30 minutes. They will be without 2 players. Robert Saleh announcing on Saturday that Jaron Kanik, the 7th-round rookie out of Oklahoma, and Jalen Harrell, the depth defensive end, both out for the season. Harrell tears his ACL. Kanik tears his pec. We'll talk about those guys and who could possibly earn their spot on the 53 in their absence. We'll get to it coming up next. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel at 1025 The Game for live shows and exclusive content. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelley, next man up, 1025 The Game. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman live at Titans training camp. Under 30 minutes away from practice kicking off. Week 2 of the preseason coming up. Friday, joint practice with Seattle right here at Vanderbilt Health Football Center. And then on Sunday, first of the last game in Nissan Stadium of the final season against Seattle to start the preseason home slate. Chicago comes in next week. Tough news on Saturday that we're going to get into here. Jaron Kanak and Jalen Harrell both injured and out for the season. Harrell tears his ACL. You could kind of see it on Thursday night, Parker. I'm sure you've seen the clip of the non-contact from Harrell where it was coming off the edge and it looked like just took a bad step, landed awkwardly, and that does it for your season. It's always tough to see those injuries happen where Harrell was a guy who has been improving steadily at 5.5 sacks last year, was expected to have a role this season, and now out for the year.
It is unfortunate because for a guy like that who, I mean, there's a lot of competition within that D-line room with the amount of guys they brought into free agency and drafting Keldrick Falk. And he was one of those borderline guys. I don't think he was a guaranteed lock to make the 53, but there was still a good chance for him. And when you tear your ACL, it's just one of those injuries where you can tear your ACL doing almost anything. It doesn't have to necessarily be football related. Yeah. It's so unfortunate. And for a guy like that who's still on his rookie contract and so young, it's really tough to see.
Yeah, and I think he was being slotted in as the 5th guy at defensive end. You're going to keep probably 10 defensive linemen. Saleh likes to rotate these guys, and on the edge, Falk's going to make the team, Johnson's going to make the team, Martin's going to make it, and Femi's going to make it. I think those were your 4, and everyone was pretty much slotting in Harrell as number 5. He had 5.5 sacks last year and is, again, shown improvement year over year. I mentioned on Friday, one of the guys who stood out to me, who I really wasn't on my radar to make the team, Malik Herring, 6-year guy out of Georgia. I thought he looked good. He got his hands in the passing lanes once. He was able, I want to say he had a sack on Curtis Rourke or Adrian Martinez as well on Thursday night. I wonder if this injury maybe opens the door for him to be that 5th defensive end. And he's a bigger guy too, 6'3", 275, that can kind of play inside, outside for you.
He certainly impressed me. There were a lot of depth pieces that, I didn't really know of, or you didn't really hear a whole lot about heading into the preseason that have impressed. Malik Herring, definitely one of those guys. Colin Saunders, who TD talked about last Thursday, another one of those guys. I mean, you look throughout the roster, guys like, flipping over to the offense, Hank Beatty has been impressive. He's kind of had a Mason Kinsey-like impact, and Mason Kinsey, has just found ways to stick around. So guys like that, you just got to look for, but they have stuck out in training camp so far.
Yeah, the defensive front's just going to be so crucial. And we just talked about the weaknesses of the secondary and a little bit of shakiness out there on Thursday night against San Francisco. You need that front 4 to be able to get after the quarterback and allow you to drop as many guys in coverage as you can. And not that Jalen Harrell is it's not like it's a devastating loss for that group, but it does take away another one of those bodies that I think Robert Saleh was going to trust to rotate in and out, wants to have a constant rotation of players on that front. And Harrell being out for the season obviously takes away an option for him. Again, I think you're going to see 10 guys on the defensive front make it. Falk, Johnson, Martin, Oladejo, Elliott, Franklin Myers. I would guess Jackie Marshall's going to make it, although we haven't seen much of him. He's been injured. Jeffrey Simmons, Solomon Thomas. I think that's 9. And then you're looking at maybe 1, maybe 2 spots out there. You did mention Colin Saunders. TD mentioned him as somebody to take a look out for on Thursday against San Francisco. He did have a pretty big run stuff later on in that game, too. It's a big man, Colin Saunders, 6 foot, 324 on the interior of the offensive line.
He's even bigger, too, when you get out in person. But he made a play, I think it was in the 4th quarter on the preseason game versus San Francisco. And I immediately thought of TD because when we were talking about, under-the-radar guys that can make an impact, both of us were talking about Femi, and I think we talked about Hank Beatty on the offensive side, and TD says Colin Saunders. So when he made a play, I immediately thought of TD, and, he's been solid out there at training camp.
Yeah, TD, I agree with you. We were thinking more like under the radar, but also kind of on your radar, I guess would be the best way to say it. Like, yeah, they're not the starters, they're not the superstars, but you know about him. He brought up Colin Saunders, and he did make a play on Thursday. So the defensive line, still one of the deeper positions on the team, but Harrell being out for the season hurts that depth a little bit. And Jaron Kanik also out for the year, the rookie tight end out of Oklahoma. I expected him to be a pretty big piece on special teams for Bones Fossil, given his background as a linebacker. Felt like he was going to play a role there. Now out for the year with the torn pec. Maybe opens the door for some of those other guys in the tight end room. I think David Martin Robinson was going to contend for a spot anyway. It was just dependent on whether they kept 3 or 4 tight ends. And then I guess Kylan Granson also, you can put him back on the radar as a guy who could make the team, has plenty of experience playing in the NFL, but I think was on the outside looking in before this injury to Kanik.
And they just signed a tight end over the weekend. Yesterday they signed Matt Latour, I think is how you say it.
Yeah, Lauder, something like that. Yeah,
out of Boise State. Yeah, rookie. So, David Martin Robinson's one of those guys that is just he's very gifted athletically, and he's been given several opportunities in practice. Sometimes got some runs with the ones when they go to multiple tight end sets. But when the games come around, he's primarily used on special teams, doesn't get a lot of run with the offense. Your top 2 are going to be set, obviously, with Gunnar Helmet and Daniel Bellinger. But once you get past that, Kanik was a guy that I believe was going to make the roster just because of his impact on special teams. But, you have other guys like Joel Wilson who plays special teams and David Martin Robinson. That's going to be an interesting conversation to have when we get down to the cuts.
Yeah, again, these injuries, you never want to see season-ending injuries for anybody, and these aren't devastating for this team, right? Like, there are a few players I think you can point to and say, if they go down, this season could go even further south real quickly. But I do think that depth was really important at those 2 positions, tight end and on the defensive front, and this certainly hurts that with Harrell and Kanik being out for the year. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. 7410 on the text line. Getting back to Cam Ward here, says, do either of you guys remember what the word on Josh Allen was at the beginning of his year 2? At this point in his career, had he already shown flashes of being a franchise quarterback or not really? I know there are real differences between Cam and Allen. Allen has the elite arm and athleticism that Cam does not, but just curious how the 2 quarterbacks compare early on. I mean, we went back through and Adam Vingen helped us find the preseason openers for Josh Allen, and they weren't good. That's irrelevant, though. It really doesn't matter. His first 2 years, though, he had a sub 60% completion percentage. In 2018, it was 53%. Had more interceptions than touchdowns as a rookie. It wasn't good. Then in 2019, 59%, so better, but still under 7 yards per attempt. He did cut down on the turnovers, and then you saw that big jump in year 3. He raised the completion percentage 10 percentage points up to 69%, had 4,500 yards, 37 touchdowns, 10 picks. It was year 3 where he really went from flashes, but still not consistent enough to, okay, this guy might be a superstar. Again, it's asking a lot of Cam Ward to become Josh Allen, right? Like, Josh Allen is widely regarded as one of, if not the best quarterbacks in the NFL right now. It's asking a lot, but you do have the same coordinator who helped him get there with Brian Daboll, and you see similarities in the way that they play, hunting the big plays, not always taking what's given to you. If Brian Daboll can change the mindset for Cam Ward like I think he was able to with Josh Allen, that's going to fix a lot of things. Josh Allen, the one thing coming out of Wyoming that everyone looked at, it was like, he's super inaccurate. Yeah, he's got the big arm. Yeah, he's got the big frame. He's athletic. He can run. But he had like a 51% career completion percentage at Wyoming, and it didn't look better in his first year and a half in the league. That's when it started to grow. I think you're hoping to see the same trajectory with Cam Ward under Brian Daboll, that he's going to start taking those easier plays, and that will allow him to be a more consistent quarterback. So I would say they probably were in a similar spot narrative-wise heading into year 2 between Josh Allen and Cam Ward. We'll see if Cam Ward can take the jump that we saw from Josh Allen about midway through year 2.
There are a lot of similar things, too, with just the development. Josh Allen was more of a a raw prospect coming out of Wyoming. He had a lot more that he needs to work on. That Cam Ward does. Cam Ward still has a lot to work on, but just from a fundamental perspective, I mean, they had to mess with Josh Allen's throwing motion a ton because it was pretty bad when he was coming out of Wyoming. They had to tie that together with his footwork, and I think that's what they're trying to do with Cam Ward, at least behind the scenes. We may not be privy to that information at practice. And also, too, what you talked about, the accuracy issues, the taking the easy play, and when you have to put on the cape, you can, but you don't have to do that all the time. And they're surrounding him with more pieces from a weapon standpoint so that he can just trust his playmakers down the field, which I think will help a ton.
Right. And the Josh Allen comparison is obvious just because of Brian Dable. And because some of the issues they dealt with as a rookie were the same. That doesn't mean he's going to be Josh Allen. You still have to have the talent. You still have to, and we think he has the work ethic. We've seen that on plenty of accounts, and that seems to be what everybody's is. Cam has the want to be great and the willingness to do the work to get there. We've got to see more of the field from him. But yeah, if you're comparing Josh Allen, Cam Ward, and what the thought was of them heading into year two, I would say the narrative was probably pretty similar about those two players heading into their second season. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. We'd love to hear from you. Our phone line's driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. We'll get into more Titans. Again, they're about to hit the practice field coming up in a little over 15 minutes. We'll give you updates throughout practice with fans out here today, but did want to talk some Vanderbilt. I was out there at their scrimmage on Saturday, heard Clark Lee speak on his two quarterbacks, Jared Curtis, Blaze Berlowitz, what they've been able to do, and still need some more time to make a decision. We'll talk about that. And also the narrative around Vanderbilt right now from some of the national media members, I think, is hilarious. And there was a podcast clip I wanted to get to. We'll do all of that coming up in hour number 2, plus more Titans as we are live from Titans training camp. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelley, next man up, 102.5 The Game. Second hour, next man up, 102.5. The Game. It is a reaction Monday. I am live at Vanderbilt Health Football Center. Titans training camp about to get underway. Jake Lyman with you. Parker Kelley back at our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. All of our Titans training camp coverage presented by Tennessee Brewworks, Parman Energy, the Music City Kickoff Game, Twin Peaks Restaurants, Parman Tractor and Equipment, Nelson's Greenbrier Distillery, and Tri-State Water, Power, and Air. Wanted to get into some Vanderbilt football here. We'll talk some Vols this hour as well. Again, Titans team drills usually get going around 11 a.m., so we'll start to give you some updates then. As fans are out here, we can't update you live throughout the show, so we will do that. But did want to talk some college football. We are less than 2 weeks away from week 0, less than 3 weeks away from a full slate of college football. We cannot wait. And I was out there at Vanderbilt scrimmage on Saturday, just hanging out, watching some of what they've got coming back for 2026. And, of course, the quarterbacks were the talk of the day. Clark Lee, I was sitting in on his press conference on Saturday afternoon and talked about what he's seen from Jared Curtis, the growth there, thought that Saturday was one of his best days overall in terms of operation and execution, but said he's not ready to name a starting quarterback yet. We'll see if that comes in the next week or so. Both these quarterback competitions, Parker, are really interesting for Tennessee and Vanderbilt because I do think eventually it has to be the true freshman. You got to eventually get to Jared Curtis. And I do think for Tennessee, you eventually are going to get to Faison Brandon. George McIntyre, very talented recruit coming out of high school. But I do think that the new shiny thing with Faison Brandon coming in, I think has a higher ceiling. I think they're going to get to him at some point. But that does not mean they're going to be the starter in week 1. It does seem like both coaches are still struggling with that decision of who gives you the best chance to win right away.
I'm less surprised about this from Josh Heupel's perspective because he just naturally as a coach keeps everything super close to the vest and, he's going to wait as long as possible. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't have a starter, heading into game week and we finally figure out who's going to start during the first drive of the Kennesaw State game, or the Furman game. But Josh Heupel, I think eventually is going to name a starter. I would not be surprised if it is Faison Brandon. That's actually who I think is going to start for him, although you have been hearing positive things about George McIntyre from the last week. But what's concerning about that is George McIntyre, despite not having as much experience in college, he still has more experience than Faison Brandon has, plus he has a year in the system, but he hasn't taken the bull by the horns yet. And if you're thinking about upside, there's certainly more upside with Faison Brandon. So when all things are even, I tend to lean, okay, who has the more upside, and that's Faison Brandon.
Yeah, that's my thought process too. And I think yes, McIntyre is younger and more talented than Blaise Berlowitz is, but it's a similar question of if it's close, do you go with the guy who has more talent? And also the advantage for guys like Berlowitz and McIntyre should be their experience in the system. Berlowitz has been in the Tim Beck system for at least 3 years, going back to New Mexico State. George McIntyre has that year head start on Faison Brandon. And like you said, if they haven't taken the bull by the horns and they haven't looked like the better, more experienced quarterback immediately, then I do wonder if you just go with the young guy.
And two, it's not a huge part of Josh Heupel's offense, but the quarterback is going to be asked to run a little bit. That is part of the scheme. And when George McIntyre, if he takes off to run, I'm worried he's going to get snapped in half. Faison Brandon physically looks like an upperclassman in college. He's impressive from a physical standpoint. With George McIntyre, I truly worry that it doesn't look like he's put on any weight, and if he has, it's really hard to tell. So with that dynamic of the offense being in play, that also would favor Faison Brandon.
Yeah, I think at some point during the year, you got to go to those young guys. And because if Faison Brandon doesn't start this year and George McIntyre, let's say he's not horrible, right? Like he's a good player. You maybe go 8-4. He's a good player. what do you do coming back next year? Like, do you tell your starting quarterback to hit the portal because Faison Brandon's going to start? Or does Faison Brandon say, well, I'm stuck behind McIntyre now. I'm not going to get an opportunity here. I'm going to go into the portal. So that whole situation in Tennessee is a little different. With Vanderbilt, Jared Curtis is the future, right? Like that's everyone knows that they are trying to build this program over the next few years around Jared Curtis as the centerpiece at quarterback. That doesn't mean he's going to be ready week one, but I also wonder, again, if it's close, because if it's not close and Clarkley looks at it and says, Blaise Berlowitz gives us the best chance to win, I think you've got to go with Berlowitz. But if it's close, wouldn't you rather Jared Curtis get that ramp-up period that we've talked about a ton with Vanderbilt of, all right, you get Austin Peay to start, you get Delaware, and then you get NC State before you have to go into Jordan Hare and go play between the hedges at Athens, the team that you were committed to and then flipped on. Like, if you're going to play him at all this season, I think it makes sense to just start him in week one and let him get those reps and that ramp-up period, because if you're going to just plug him in later on in the year and his first start is coming at Jordan Hare, that's a lot. You're throwing him into the deep end, whereas, again, no disrespect against Austin Peay. They're a good FCS team. You're allowing him to kind of wade into the waters a little bit if you just start him from week one and deal with some of the growing pains that you're going to see with a freshman quarterback.
Yeah, with Jared Curtis, it's never been about the physical development as much as it is about the mental learning curve that he's going to have to get over at some point. But it sounds like from everything that I've heard from Clark Lee, he's a lot higher on the talent of the roster and the depth of the roster than even he was last year. And the way they're talking, they weren't satisfied with how last year ended. So they're wanting to build off of that. And all due respect to Blaise Berlowitz, I just don't know how competitive a football team you can be with him as your starter. So, and you're paying all that money to Jared Curtis, I don't think you're just going to sit him on the bench. I think he's going to be your starter at some point. I honestly think it's going to be week one, but I think it'll be okay to throw him in the fire and just see how he does.
Yeah, and with Blaise Berlowitz, I think if you're starting him, you're not going to be asking a ton from him. It's going to be take care of the football, rely on your run game, and make the throws when we need you to, right? Like it's going to be limited passing game. They're going to rely on the trio of running backs they have in the backfield, led by Cedric Alexander. That's going to be the game plan, and then hope your defense holds up and you can win some games that way. With Jared Curtis, yeah, you're probably going to have to deal with some of those freshman mistakes, and maybe there's a turnover here and there that it's just like, man, Blaise wouldn't have done that. But I think you're also going to get some plays out there, and they posted a play, Vandy did, from the scrimmage on Saturday where he's rolling against his body and hits a running back for a big play. It's like you're going to get some of those plays where it's like, man, Blaise wouldn't have done that, and Jared would. So I think you kind of have to take the good with the bad, and again, Clark Lee going to make this decision in the next couple of weeks leading up to that opener against Austin Peay. I just would like to see the young guy maybe get his feet wet a little bit early on before you have to get into a 9-game SEC schedule, because if he's going to play at all, I'd rather him get those game reps under his belt before you're facing the superpowers that you're going to face week in and week out in the SEC.
And there is the ramp-up period for Jared Curtis, but you're just going to have to know that if he ends up being the starter week one, there are going to be freshman mistakes, and there are going to be times where it's a welcome to college football moment. That just happens, for any freshman making the jump from, starting in high school to starting in the SEC right away. That's just a natural part of it. But the upside with him, there's plenty of it, and I'd rather have him just get the experience now and learn those lessons, where you're heading into your sophomore season, you're feeling really good about where he's at.
615-737-1025 is our phone number. 1180 on the text line says, let's be honest, if Vandy wins 3 games, Curtis transfers. See, I don't know about that, first of all. Like, I think that Curtis signed up for this knowing that it's going to be a couple-year process. I don't think Jared Curtis came into this thinking we're going to be in the college football playoff year one. So I don't know. But the big thing is I don't think Vandy's only winning 3 games this year. And that leads us into where we're going next. Bruce Feldman was on the Audible podcast with The Athletic. and just had some what I want to call ill-informed takes on what Vanderbilt football is going to look like this year, and we'll get to it coming up next. 615-737-1025. It is a Reaction Monday. Jake Lyman out at Vanderbilt Health Football Center. Titans practice minutes away from getting started. We'll have updates for you throughout the show. Again, our phone and text line driven by Wilson County Hyundai, online at wilsoncountyhyundai.com. Next man up here on 102.5 The Game.
I'm selling pretty big on this. I would not be shocked if they were in a dogfight against Austin P. I think I wouldn't be shocked if they ended up getting upset in that game. I think they're probably headed to this season. Again, new quarterback. After the first two games, the schedule gets a lot harder. I think they're a 3-9 kind of team this year.
Jeez, old Pete, there's your aggregation right there. Did Clark Lee insult your family at some point, Bruce?
No, they lost a generational college player for them, and they lost a really dynamic tight end on top of it. I think Pavia was such a huge impact guy there. Again, I don't think they're going to be, I mean, they were worse than what I think they're going to be before Pavia got there, but I do think there's going to be some growing pains. And again, this is a little bit of a function of their They're closer to where they used to be now, and the schedule is a lot harder.
That was Bruce Feldman on the Audible podcast from The Athletic talking about Vanderbilt football. Next man up, 102.5 The Game, Jake Lyman, Parker Kelley with you. I got to say, that it made me chuckle a couple of times listening to some of those things, because the one thing I gathered is I think Bruce Feldman, the only two players he knew on Vanderbilt's team from last year were Diego Pavia and Eli Stowers. He mentioned them both twice and didn't talk about anything that they have coming back this year on defense, some of the skill position players, Cedric Alexander, Junior Sherrill. Now, I think Vandy is going to take a step back this year. I don't think anybody could argue that this team's going to be better without a player like Diego Pavia and some of the other losses that they've had. But the one line in that bothered me the most is Vandy is closer to where they were before than they were with Diego Pavia, because that is just patently untrue when you look at the level of talent on this roster.
Drugs, just pure and utter drugs. I like Bruce Feldman, I really do, but I don't know what he's talking about, nor can I defend what he was saying. In college football, there's this disease nationally where people love to talk about what teams lose, and that is a part of the conversation, certainly. But if you're going to talk about what teams are losing, can you at least talk about what they have returning and what they have coming in? Vanderbilt, the cellar is not dry with Vanderbilt. They have one of the best 1-2 punches at running back, not just in the SEC, but in the country, that for some reason nobody wants to talk about, and Cedric Alexander and MK Young. I know they lose 4 starters on the offensive line, but go look at who they brought in to replace them. I feel really great about that unit. I feel good about the receiving core. I love Ricardo Jones, bringing him in from Clemson. Yeah. 6 interceptions last year, which was tied for second in the country. I love the secondary. I don't know how the front seven's going to be this year, but I'm willing to blindly trust it at least a little bit more than last season as of right now. The only thing that we're really talking about as a question mark is the quarterback. So if you're going to talk about what a team is losing, well, at least talk about what they have coming in. You talk about a generational player for Vanderbilt and Diego Pavia. Well, Vanderbilt just beat out Georgia and Oregon for a 5-star quarterback, the number one quarterback in the class. No mention of Jared Curtis.
Yeah, it seems like the only two players he knew were Pavia and Stowers. Like, all right, well, they're not there anymore, so they're going to go 3-9. Being in a dogfight with Austin Peay, I mean, are we serious, Bruce? Like, that whole clip, if you're going to talk about it was an SEC preview podcast that whole thing came from. And it's hard for these national reporters to know everything about every single team. But if you're going to sit down and you're going to do an hour-long podcast on the SEC, at least have some knowledgeable takes on all 16 teams, because all he talked about was 2 players that they lost. This defense, I think, is going to be better than it was last year. I mean, you mentioned Ricardo Jones in the secondary you bring in Brian Allen from Iowa on the defensive line. You also get back Issa Wataha, who everybody we've talked about from Vandy. We talked with Joey Dwyer, who covers the team for Vandy on SI. We talked with Andrew Allegretta and Kevin Ingram. And Andrew going to join us in studio tomorrow, by the way. And they say Issa Wataha may be the biggest addition, just getting him back from injury this year. You've got Miles Capers back. You've got Brian Longwell back. Nick Rinaldi's back. Martell Heights back. CJ Hurd's back. That defense returns a whole lot of talent, and you add in some key pieces at different spots to help fill it out. I really think that this team, again, is not going to be a 10-win team most likely, but I think projecting it to be anything less than a bowl team, like maybe 5-7 you could get away with, and I wouldn't say it's completely asinine. But 3-9 and saying they're going to possibly lose to Austin Peay at home, I think is just absolutely ridiculous.
And you don't expect a guy like Bruce Feldman to know everything about Vandy football, but at least, I mean, it from that soundbite, it doesn't even sound like he did his homework. And we're not, I don't think even people here are expecting Vanderbilt to replicate what they did last year, going 10-2 in the regular season and making the bowl game versus Iowa. But I don't think the bottom is just going to completely fall out. I still think they'll be competitive to, around where they were in 24 when they went 6-6. They might even be a little bit better. I think Vandy's going to go 7-5, but But even 7-5, I don't think is a bad year for Vanderbilt.
No, and I think that it's just so funny he didn't mention anything about this year's team in that clip. Like if you listen back to it, there is nothing about a concern that he has about this year's team specifically. I guess you could say that the Pavia one was kind of inferring that quarterback's going to be an issue, which I think everybody looks at and says quarterback may be the weak spot of this team because Jared Curtis is young, and if he's out there, there's going to be some growing pains. But it's not like he mentioned, the offensive line, you're replacing 4 starters, which would have been a valid criticism. All he said was you lost Pavia and you lost Stowers, so you're going to be back to same old Vandy. Like it's such lazy analysis, and I laughed at that. Again, I don't think Vandy's going to be a college football playoff team this year. I think that's too high of expectations when you are losing Diego Pavia and you do have to replace a lot of pieces on the offensive line and you lose a couple of weapons, not just Eli Stowers, but Trey Richardson's gone. But I look at that defense and I think there is a ton of talent there. You lost a few guys. Langston Patterson at linebacker, Randon Fontenette was obviously a key piece in the secondary. He's now at Colorado. But you bring back so much talent, and you bring in guys like Allen and Jones in the secondary, and you're going to see development from some of the younger guys. I think this team is going to be I would say 6 to 8 win team would be my guess. Give or take a win or two here. But again, somebody told me about that on Saturday. I think it was Andrew Allegret actually mentioned that clip to me, and I went back and listened to it, and I was like, all right, we got to talk about this on the show because it just makes no sense. And it shows that he probably could not name more than 3 players on Vanderbilt's roster.
No, that's what bothers me. Just not mentioning anything about this year's team, just talking about what the team lost. Okay, but who do they bring in? They've been pretty good when it comes to evaluating guys in the portal, evaluating guys out of high school, and I give a ton of credit to Barton Simmons and his staff. I really feel like that's made a huge difference when it comes to scouting and bringing these guys in through the portal. I think they've been spot on. And Cade McConnell, he's one of my favorite offensive linemen in college football. So him anchoring that offensive line, I have a lot of confidence. But yeah, that bothers. It really was lazy analysis, and I expect better from Bruce Feldman. Yeah, and the season is less than a month away. We're getting closer, but I would be absolutely stunned if Vandy does not beat Austin Peay by at least 17 points. I mean, there's too much of a gap between. Right. There's a gap between the group of 6 and FCS. Like it's just like, what are we talking about? Right. And this is nothing against Austin Peay because I do think Austin Peay is a good FCS team. Right. We saw what they did at MTSU last year in the opener. There are levels to this though, like you said, and Vandy this is not the same old Vandy from 3 years ago where it's like, oh, you got to worry about them in every game. No, Vandy's going to take care of business in its first 2 games. I would be stunned if either of those games are in question heading into the fourth quarter. And acting like Austin Peay is, like Montana State or something, or North Dakota State or South. Yeah. They're not one of the Dakota schools. Again, no offense to Austin Peay. They've done just a fine job, but come on, dude. Like, Austin Peay is not beating Vanderbilt. Yeah. Anyway, I thought that was funny. Vandy, I've said it all offseason that I do think that there is this narrative of it was all Pavia and Vandy's going to go back to being what they were before. And Bruce Feldman basically saying those words verbatim to discuss why he thinks Vandy's going to go 3-9 is hilarious because there's no analysis going on there. You're not actually looking at the players and the coaches and what they do on the football field. You're just scouting a logo and saying, oh, well, Pavia's gone. Same old Vandy. It's ridiculous. And I hope that Vandy proves a lot of those people wrong this year. And that doesn't have to mean being a 9-win team. But being a team that is now competitive in every single SEC game, it is going to be in a bowl year in and year out. That's a big step forward for Vanderbilt. And you hope that can be a building block for the next few years where Jared Curtis starts to settle in and can become the guy that you recruited him to be. And I really trust, I do. Barton Simmons is one of those guys where I just don't feel like he gets enough credit for his job.
Yeah.
He's really good at evaluating these guys. And I think that's just such a huge part of today's game where it's speed dating. With only one portal window, coaches have talked about it. It's you get 2 weeks to get these guys in and out, and you really got to be able to hit on these guys without having much knowledge on them prior. That's why you need almost a front office type like you have in the NFL and college football. But for, the last 2 years, they've really been able to hit on these guys out of the portal. But did he even name Eli Stowers by name, or did he just say that really
he just
good
said a dynamic tight end?
So, yeah, that's Vanderbilt's analysis. You lose Diego Pavia, you lose that one really good tight end.
Yeah, he's a good player for
3-9. I mean,
yeah.
Come on, dude.
I know. It's just like, again, nothing. This isn't personal against Bruce Feldman. I think he does. I think he does do a good job for the most part. But this was clearly he didn't know much about Vanderbilt and just decided to go off. Oh, well, that's the headline. They lost Pavia 3-9. They suck. It's just lazy. 615-737-1025. Let's go to the phone lines. Edward is called in, wanting to chime in. Edward, thanks for calling. Good morning.
Hey guys, can you hear me? Okay.
Yep, we got you.
This is my analogy of national sports talk, guys. I listen to a lot of weekend stuff, and y'all are looking for fillers, so you put some of these on. I've always found that your local regional sports talk radio guys are just so much better. I think of a national guy as a guy that was in school, and the teacher says he's not worth being picked up to the next grade, but I don't want to deal with him anymore. He's going. That's the way I see national sports talk guys. I mean, you ever listen to some of these guys out of Las Vegas? They're idiots. And so it's just a grain of thought for. I don't. I mean, you tell me. This is your career. Would it be a big deal for you to get picked up to a national sports talk show and be put on the weekends? And I mean, let me ask Jake. Tell me.
Yeah, it's a good question, Edward, because I do think for national, you have to be a jack of all trades, but like a master of none, right? Because it's not hyper focused. For us here, we can be hyper focused on the Titans and the Preds and Vanderbilt and Tennessee and college football, NFL football as a whole. It's very specialized. I do think that some things may fly under the radar, and you have to speak in generalities and headlines when you're doing national, because you're not hyper local. You're not hyper focused on anything.
Let me ask you this. So people like yourself, Paul Kaharski, Joe Dubin, I mean, is that what y'all want to aspire to, national? I don't know. I'm just asking. I mean, is that where everybody wants to head in the sports talk radio era?
I mean, I guess it just depends on the person, right? Like, I think there are some people who fit more of a local area, and it's like they speak to a certain fan base. I think there are other people who do aspire to do national. I mean, I can't speak for anybody else. I mean, my start always was in play-by-play, so it's like that's kind of been my track. But yeah, I mean, I think when you get called up to national, you're asked to cover the national headlines. The NBA is a big deal.
Thought.
Yep.
Yeah, all right, my final thought. Okay, if Bruce thinks that Austin Peay is going to give Vanderbilt an issue, I mean, what drugs are? I mean, is he on crack cocaine? Or I mean, give me a break.
To answer your question, Edward,
I mean,
yes, there are drugs involved.
Homework. You can do very little homework and find that information out, guys.
Right. We appreciate the call, Edward. Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, with Bruce Feldman, I do think it's just he spoke in generalities, he spoke in headlines, and I think Edward makes a good point about it. Like national, you do have to kind of just speak in what the general public knows, and people who cover the SEC, not just Vanderbilt in general, the SEC know more about Vanderbilt for him who covers everything. I think it was just he didn't dive deep enough and said, Pavia's gone. Whatever. 2513 says, keep sleeping on Austin Peay. We are not trying to take shots at Austin Peay here. I think Austin Peay is going to be a very good FCS team. But how many FCS over FBS upsets have there been in the last 15 years? I mean, it's a big deal when it happens. And for Vanderbilt, a team that won 10 games a year ago and is returning a lot of talent, despite what some people may tell you, I don't see it happening.
I don't either. I really don't either. But what do we know about Vanderbilt, right? I cannot believe that. I'm shocked because I know Bruce Feldman is better than that, and he's really good at what he does. But just the age old saying, Jake. Casual people rarely say smart things. Sometimes smart people say casual things. I just think it's an instance of the latter here with Bruce Feldman. But yeah, really bad take by him.
I will say FCS over FBS upsets happen more often than you would think, but FCS over Power 4 upsets would be more what I was talking about.
I mean, there have been instances lately of like FCS teams beating up on beating a group of 6, but when it comes to beating a Power 4, the age of App State beating Michigan, I mean, those days are pretty much behind us.
Yeah, I'm looking back through FCS over Power Conference teams. Sacramento State beat Stanford in 2023. Southern Illinois beat Northwestern in 2022.
What was the last year? Oregon State was taken down to the wire by FCS. It started with an L. I can't remember.
See that on here.
It was early on in their schedule. I'll go find it.
Tarleton State beat Army last year. Austin Peay beat MTSU. LIU beat Eastern Michigan, and Bryant beat UMass. Those were your FCS over FBS wins. So it's very rare to see a team from the FCS beat a Power Conference team. It does happen, but rarely. And to pick that, I think it's lazy. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. If you want to text or call, our phone line's driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. We will continue talking some college football. Titans practice is underway as well. We'll give you updates as we have them for you. With fans out here today, we will keep you updated on how Cam Ward's day goes and much more. 615-737-1025. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelley, next man up, 1025 The Game. Next man up, 102.5, The Game. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelley with you. I am live at Titans training camp. Practice is underway. Individual work going on right now. We will give you updates once they get into some team stuff, let you know how things are going for Cam Ward and company as they kick off week 2 of the preseason. Practice today, practice Wednesday, joint practice with Seattle on Friday, leading up to the home opener in the preseason against the Seahawks on Sunday. We are talking some college football here. We are 2.5 weeks away from week 1. Am I correct? Yeah. Less than 3 weeks away from week 1, a little over 2 weeks away from week 0. I'm not doing the math right there in my head. But anyway.
2 weekends until week 0, 3 until week 1.
Yes. This is I'll make it simple. This weekend coming up is the last weekend without meaningful football. It may not be great meaningful football in week 0, but we've got one more weekend without football that actually counts. So excited for that. We talked a lot of Vandy this hour. I did want to check in on the Vols. Another tough injury, safety Idris Farouk with a torn patellar tendon. He is out for the year. Parker, your level of concern with this defense. I know bringing in Jim Knowles, you expect a big upgrade in terms of the leadership on the defensive side, but losing another piece and, Chaz Coleman, they've at least had a while to deal with that and get guys ready to fill that role. Arian Carter's only going to miss 2 games with the suspension, but you lose another starting player in that secondary. Any level of concern for this defense heading towards the new season?
Well, it's not great. That's not great news because he was going to be a starting safety. He was second in the SEC last year in forced fumbles. I think he had a couple interceptions as well. So losing him, you're not going to have Arian Carter for those 2 games. You lose Jaden Harmon to a torn ACL who, he was running with the 3s, but he was still going to be a depth piece. And this linebacker room is the strongest point of the defense for Tennessee. So obviously that's not great news, but defense is still going to be a strength under Jim Knowles this year. It's just more so how quickly are they able to expedite this learning curve, because his history shows that it takes about 2 years to get used to this Jim Knowles system. So bringing in those Penn State transfers, how fast does that expedite the process?
Yeah, that's true. Having guys who have already been in this system, and this is a conversation we've had a ton with Brian Dable and Robert Saleh. You brought in guys who know this system, and they can maybe accelerate the learning process for guys around him. Can the same thing be true for Jim Knowles' defense with the Vols with some of those Penn State transfers? Again, it's Arian Carter only out for 2 games, but you lose another starter. That Georgia Tech game, I keep coming back to that as a big turning point of the season for the Vols, where if you win that one, even down a man on defense with your quarterbacks settling in, I think that really could be there's still so much time to play after that, right? You got 10 more games, but I think that game could show you where this season is going to go for the Vols, given all the question marks that you have.
Absolutely. I'd say it's kind of a similar conversation we're having with Vanderbilt. Really the only concern, and it's not even a concern because we haven't seen them play a game yet, but that quarterback position, nobody knows who the starter is going to be at this point in time, but you feel good about everything. Tennessee has one of the most experienced offensive lines in the SEC with 4 returning starters, and the guy who's probably going to be your right tackle, has some experience playing at LSU. So there's that. Your receivers, Braylon Staley, one of the better receivers in the SEC last year. Mike Matthews, a 5-star. You're just trying to figure out who's going to be wide receiver 3. And then you have Deshaun Bishop, who's all SEC in the preseason. The pieces are there. You just got to figure out who the quarterback is.
Right. And I think that is the big hinge point of, if you get good quarterback play, this Tennessee team could be very good. The roster is solid on both sides of the ball. Now, the injuries and the suspension make things a little bit hazier on the defensive side, but you're right. I mean, I think quarterback play, as it is for a lot of teams, but specifically for Tennessee and Vanderbilt, is going to decide what this season looks like. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. If you have any thoughts, you can text or call. Our phone line's driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. We will wrap up hour number 2 coming up next. Any other college football notes? The AP poll set to be released today.
Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait for that, Jake.
You're a big AP poll. I don't want to use the word hater.
Oh no, I'm a hater. I'm definitely a hater.
Skeptic. Okay, you're embracing the hater.
No,
role.
I'm definitely a hater of the AP poll.
Well,
I'll be ripping on it all year.
It comes out in 15 minutes. We'll get your initial thoughts coming out at the top of the hour. We'll talk about that. And also Ryan Day with a little bit of a change to get ready for the game against Michigan this year. We will get into that as well. Titans practice underway here at Vanderbilt Health Football Center. We'll give you updates on how things are going throughout the final hour plus of the show as well. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelley, next man up, 102.5 The Game. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelley with you on this Reaction Monday. I am again live at Titans training camp. Practice underway. Individual portion going on right now. Again, we'll let you know any headlines throughout the day as practice goes along. It is open to the fans. Good crowd out here for this Monday morning practice. Titans practice today, Wednesday, and then joint practice with Seattle on Friday. We are talking college football here in hour number 2. Spent a lot of time on Vandy, some time on the Vols. The AP poll set to be released in a little over 10 minutes here. Who do you think is going to be number 1, Parker? Ohio State was number 1 in the coaches poll. Do you think it's going to be the same in the AP poll coming up?
My guess would be either Ohio State, Oregon, maybe even Texas. I doubt that it'll be Texas, but I believe they'll be in the top 3. My guess would either be Ohio State or Oregon.
Yeah, I would say those 2 in Texas are the 3 for me. I think Notre Dame probably gets some votes too. I think a lot of people are high on the Fighting Irish this year, and then maybe Georgia gets a vote or 2. Those are your top 5, though, I would guess, in some order. But, yeah, I think probably one of those 2 Big Ten teams, Ohio State or Oregon, is going to be number 1.
That would be my guess. One of those teams from the Big Ten. I hope the AP is smart enough to not have Indiana outside the top 5 like the coaches poll did.
Yeah.
Notre Dame I expect to be in there. I would hope to see Georgia maybe within the 5 to 8 range. I think your top 7 is pretty set if you throw Miami in there too, and then you got your 3 tiers or your 3 teams from the Big Ten, Texas, Georgia. A combination of those 7 teams, I think that would be pretty fair. I just want to see the order.
Yeah, I think those 7 are your top 7. I would be surprised if anyone else sneaks in, because beyond that, I think there's a lot of question marks for the next tier of the SEC. A&M, Oklahoma, Ole Miss, Alabama. Like, are those playoff teams this year? Either they're losing a lot, or with Oklahoma, I think you saw the way they finished the season. A&M too, where it just didn't look very good when they got into the playoffs. So I'm interested to see what those teams look like. You also have Texas Tech, who's going to be somewhere in that range too, as the top Big 12 team. And then the Big Ten, beyond those top 3 teams, is USC going to be a playoff caliber team this year? How about Michigan? What does Penn State look like as the Matt Campbell era begins? So I think there's a lot of questions, but those are probably your next 8 to 10. You could add LSU and BYU in there as well. Your next 8 to 10 beyond that clear 7 at the top.
And, there's a ongoing debate. I've been hearing this a lot on DVD over the last few weeks, but if you're looking at the coaches poll, I think it's pretty well represented that, that tier 1 of the Big Ten is the best tier in college football. With the SEC, the preseason conversation has been, okay, it's Texas, it's Georgia, and then there's just a big tier 2. Well, if you're looking at the coaches poll, you just have a cluster of SEC teams all just kind of lumped together, with Texas A&M at 8, Oklahoma at 9, Ole Miss at 10, Alabama at 11, then you have LSU at 13. That just shows, and again, this means nothing because it's preseason, but there's a cluster of 5 SEC teams from the 8 to 13 range.
Yeah, I think the second tier of the SEC is strong, and you're probably not going to see all those teams end up being playoff teams, right? It's hard to imagine 6 or 7 SEC teams being in the top 12. But I think A&M, Oklahoma, Ole Miss, Alabama, LSU, and then you get down to teams like Tennessee and Missouri. Like, it's a deep SEC, but I wouldn't put those teams up in that top tier with teams like Ohio State and Oregon. Speaking of Ohio State, I'm sure you saw this. Ryan Day moving senior day to week 1 to avoid distractions during the game against Michigan. And I got to say, I'm all for tradition. And, senior day traditionally is going to be at the very end, your final home game of the regular season. But I love this. I love it. I mean, the seniors are going to get honored at some point during the season. They're going to get their moment with their family and get announced to the crowd. Why does it have to happen before the most important game of the season? I love this from Ryan Day, moving it up and saying our focus is going to be purely on beating Michigan in that final day of the season.
college football is at its best when we have hatred, just pure hatred in these rivalry games. And seeing Kyle Whittingham's comments about the game, seeing Bryce Underwood's comments about the game, I wish the Michigan folks would just stop talking and take a more Ryan Day approach where, hey, we're having senior day to kick off this thing, and then all eyes we're focused on the game. And right now, I've been told that Ohio State folks aren't even mentioning the name Michigan. Like, they're already crossing out M's up there in Columbus. So good for Ryan Day, good for Ohio State to keep the hatred in this rivalry.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you saw even 2 years ago where Ohio State, they did win a national championship, but Michigan beat them. So in their mind, in Michigan's mind, it's like, hey, take that national championship. Guess what? We got one last year, but you still couldn't beat us. And that rivalry just means so much. And I'm glad that Ryan Day is eliminating all distractions moving forward, because I really do think that game, is there a rivalry in sports that means more than the game?
I would say, the top three rivalries that come to mind for me: Michigan, Ohio State, Auburn, Alabama, Duke, North Carolina men's basketball.
Yeah, Duke, North Carolina definitely would be the basketball equivalent. And
those are probably my three, though, just off the top of my head.
In college football, the top ones, of course, Auburn, Alabama, the Iron Bowl, the game. Those two fan bases just despise each other, and it's so much fun. I think that is the best rivalry in sports. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. Ron texted, give me your argument on why Indiana is not in your top 10. Indiana, we included them in that top 7 there, Ron. I might not have mentioned them by name, but Indiana deserves to be in that top group of 7 that I think is a tier above everybody else. Ohio State, Oregon, Indiana, Georgia, Texas, Notre Dame, Miami. Those are your top 7. You can order them however you'd like, but I think it's pretty clear those are the top 7 teams in college football.
I'd have all 3 of those teams in the top 5. I'm not doubting Curt Cignetti after what he did to all of us last year, because if we're being honest, a lot of us like to play a little revisionist history, but if we're being honest, I think all of us doubted Indiana at some point last year.
I stopped doubting them, or I tried to stop doubting them after they beat Ohio State in the Big Ten championship. That was because I picked Ohio State in that game. I felt pretty good about it. And then once they beat them, I said, all right, I think Curt Cignetti might be to the point where I have to stop doubting him. It crept into my mind to pick Alabama when they played Indiana in the Rose Bowl, but I'm glad I didn't. I stuck with my gut of don't doubt Curt Cignetti anymore.
Yeah, no, I'm done. I think I picked against them 3 times last year. I picked against them in the Oregon game, picked against them in the Big Ten championship, and I even picked them to lose against Oregon in the semifinals. And every single time I'm just left with egg on my face. So I'm done doubting them. And with this team, people like Bruce Feldman, I'm sure, are going to talk about what all Indiana lost last year. But what they have coming in is the number 1 transfer portal class in college football.
Yep. Yeah, and a lot of it's going to depend on Josh Hoover. We just talked about the Vols and Vandy. Quarterback play, obviously, across all levels of football is paramount. But I think you can give Curt Cignetti the benefit of the doubt with what he's done with Curtis Rourke and Fernando Mendoza, who both made headlines on Thursday night in different ways across the NFL. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. If you want to text or call, our phone line's driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Parker, sadly, we're going to have to reschedule our scramble with New York Doug. We were just texting about it.
What's the reason?
I'm out of town the next couple of Saturdays, so I won't be able to make it. And then we're into football season where you don't want to be doing it on Saturday or Sunday.
Don't bother me on Saturdays in the fall.
New York Doug suggests maybe 9 holes on a weekday afternoon. Maybe we can swing that.
We can definitely swing that.
We'll try and figure that out.
Yeah.
615-737-1025 is the phone number. Titans practice underway. They're getting close to getting into some team drills. Again, it's open to the fans. We'll give you some updates throughout the final hour of the show. We'll get Parker's reaction to the AP poll when it comes out in a couple of minutes here. And I did want to talk Titans offensive line. It seems like it's Fernando Carmona's job to lose at right guard. Does that make you feel better about the group as a whole? We'll get into it coming up next. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelley, next man up here on 102.5 The Game. Next man up, 102.5, the game final hour on this Reaction Monday. Jake Lyman with you live at Titans training camp here at Vanderbilt Health Football Center. Parker Kelley back at our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Titans doing some of their adjusted one-on-one, 7-on-7 period right now. Again, practice underway. Fans out here for the first of 2 times this week. Joint practice with the Seahawks coming up on Friday as well. Cam Ward had a touchdown to Carnell Tate in the one-on-ones. It was a slow developing play. Maybe in a game would have been a sack, but did connect at the in the back of the end zone with him. So nice to see that. The AP poll is out. Parker, have you seen it yet?
No, I haven't. Should we do a live reaction as I'm reading?
Let's do a live reaction here. It's very similar to the coaches poll, I will say that, at least at the top.
Hey, where'd you see it? Did On3 put it out on Twitter?
It's on the AP poll website now. Number 1 is the Ohio State Buckeyes.
Okay,
so
not a surprise there.
Same as the coaches poll. Also Oregon 2, Georgia 3. Same as the coaches poll. The only change in that top 7 we talked about, we said that 7 was a tier above. They are the top 7. The only change from the coaches poll, Notre Dame is at 4, Texas is at 5.
Okay. I would have Notre Dame and Texas both above Georgia. I tell you, I'm comfortable having Georgia within the 5 to 8. I just don't view them as they are a national championship contender, but if we're talking about teams with national championship hopes, I just think they're towards the bottom end of that category. But the roster is still good enough where they can absolutely make the playoff, and there's no doubt about it. There's no questioning it.
Is it maybe the Kirby Smart factor of it, and you've seen Georgia win the national championships before, that's putting them above teams like Notre Dame, who obviously Notre Dame has their pelts on the wall from the past. Lately, Georgia has been a more formidable team in the postseason than Notre Dame or Texas.
Yeah, I'm sure that plays into it, but also, too, Georgia's just one of those teams where you can't kill them. I mean, think about how many close games they were involved in last year, and Gunnar Stockton and the offense just came up in the clutch, the Tennessee game being the example 1A. Georgia's roster is good enough where they make the playoffs, nobody questions it, but when it comes to some of the other teams like Texas's roster, this is the best roster they've ever had under Steve Sarkisian. I feel great about Notre Dame. I feel great about Ohio State, Oregon, and I know the team that we're getting ready to look at number 6. I'd absolutely have them ahead of Georgia.
Yeah, Indiana is 6, so same spot they were in the coaches poll. Miami is at 7. Yeah, Indiana, I think it's expecting with Fernando Mendoza gone that they're going to drop off. I mean, it's kind of similar to what we just talked about with Vanderbilt. Well, Fernando's gone. They're not going to be quite as good this year. I wouldn't be so sure. Again, doubt Curt Cignetti at your own risk.
I've made that mistake. I'm not making it again. I'm just simply not making it again. When Curt Cignetti is talking about Josh Hoover, the quarterback they got from TCU, he's really struggled with interceptions during his time in Fort Worth. But when Curt Cignetti is saying, we got everything we need at quarterback, I don't care who you are, that should give you confidence that they're going to be just fine.
Yeah, I think Indiana is going to be very good again this year. They're 6, Miami 7, 6 straight SEC teams from 8 through 13. A&M, Ole Miss, Oklahoma. Texas Tech is mixed in there too. 4 straight, A&M, Ole Miss, Oklahoma, LSU, Texas Tech at 12, Alabama at 13.
And I actually applaud. I don't do this often, so I applaud the AP poll for having LSU ahead of Alabama. I think LSU's roster at this point in time is better than Alabama's, and with nothing else to go off of because games haven't been played yet, you kind of do just have to look at the roster and set an expectation. And personally, in my playoff 1.0, I had LSU making the playoff and I had Alabama missing, so I applaud the AP for flipping those two teams.
And a tie at 14 behind them, BYU and USC. Then Michigan, Washington, Penn State, SMU, Tennessee slots in at number 20 in the initial AP poll.
Yeah, that's I like that they had Tennessee lower than the coaches poll did. What the coaches poll had Tennessee at 18. I can't I can't bring myself to say that right now, just with no idea who's going to be the starter at quarterback. I think it's fine that they're ranked as of right now. They may not be ranked in a few weeks, but it's okay right now. But they're definitely not. I wouldn't have them top 18. So I'm glad the AP poll has them outside of that.
And it rounds out with Utah, Iowa, Houston, Louisville, and Missouri. Missouri was 25th in the coaches poll. They are 25th in the AP poll too. The first team out, the Clemson Tigers, and Corey Curtis's favorite head coach, Dabo Swinney. Chad Texan says Clemson's first time missing the preseason top 25 since 2011.
Okay, I'm great. I'm very grateful that the AP did not do a bad job. They didn't do a terrible job with this.
All right, if Parker Kelley, who has declared himself an AP poll hater, says it's not bad. Actually, I mean, maybe it's a decent poll to start off.
So but I don't have faith they'll continue this throughout the season, because one of the things that I give the AP poll a lot of a slack for is they have these preseason expectations, and I have no issue with preseason rankings now, preseason rankings tomorrow, preseason rankings forever. I have no problem with it. But once the games actually start playing, a quarter of football is worth way more to me than all the months of conversation we had in the preseason. Once the games actually start being played, forget your preseason rankings, go off of what actually happened on the field. The AP doesn't do the best job of that.
Yeah, I mean, did you see Joe Rexroad's article about this and some of the there is some controversy around preseason rankings and whether they're taken into too much effect heading into the season. Joe put out an article on The Athletic saying preseason rankings are fun and college football needs more of that. And I, for the most part, agree. But I also do think that preseason rankings should be thrown out the window once you actually have data points on the football field. You've got to look at what the teams are actually doing and not what they were expected to do heading into the season.
Absolutely. And I think that's why they get such a bad rap, because there is this conversation about, well, we shouldn't even have preseason rankings. There's nothing wrong with it. It gives people like us something to talk about. But when the games actually start playing and the teams are out there playing, forget whatever preseason expectation you had of a team. What did they actually do on that fall Saturday? And that's how you rank teams. So that's what I try to do each week throughout the season, but the AP poll certainly doesn't do that. They had Notre Dame ranked last year in week 3 after they were 0-2 to start the season.
Right. And that's you have to be able to actually debate the resumes and not the logos and not the expectations. Like Illinois is the 4th team outside of the top 25 here. In the same conference, Penn State 17. If they both go 10-2, you got to evaluate those resumes the same way. It can't be, Michigan, well, they started at 16, then fell to 23, and then they bounce back up from there. There has to be equality in the way the resumes are evaluated.
Again, I will say this throughout the season. 1 quarter of football means much more to me, infinitely more to me than whatever my preseason. I don't even care what my preseason expectations were for a team. Once the games start happening, that's where I put all my stock. I don't care what I thought of a team in the preseason.
Right, exactly. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. Titans team drills are underway. We will give you some updates when we can. We will take a break here. Give me a chance to watch some of these plays. We'll let you know how it's going. I also wanted to dive into the offensive line here. Fernando Carmona possibly going to be the starter at right guard. It seems like he has taken that job by the horns. We will talk about what that could look like and how do you feel about that group as a whole if the rookie is slotted in there at right guard. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelley with you on your Monday morning. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelley with you. I am live at Vanderbilt Health Football Center. Coverage of training camp is presented by Tennessee Brewworks, Parman Energy, the Music City Kickoff Game, Twin Peaks Restaurants, Parman Tractor and Equipment, Nelson's Greenbrier Distillery, and Tri-State Water, Power, and Air. Titans team drills underway. Not too much notable from the first few plays. Cam Ward, I think it probably would have been a sack in a real game on the first one, but he did hit Calvin Ridley for a decent gain, and then ended his first series with a rollout completion to Chim Dike. So overall, not a bad start for Cam Ward. Nothing flashy. In the second and third team, we talked about Malik Herring earlier, maybe getting an opportunity to make this team, Parker, after what we saw on Thursday night and the injury to Jalen Harrell. I think he probably would have had a sack on Mitch Trubisky with the twos out there. So continuing to show up a little bit. I like Malik Herring as a possible depth piece on this defensive line.
That's good for him. I think the conversations we're having about the wide receiver core and your top five are pretty established, and then you're just trying to figure out who that sixth receiver is going to be. Kind of a similar conversation to what we're having with the defensive line, because like you said, I'd imagine they'd keep 10. I think your top 9 are pretty solidified, at least 8, 9. But that 10th spot with Jalen Harrell going down, certainly up for grabs. But Malik Herring is certainly making a case to make this team.
Yep, and again, with Harrell's injury, it opens up maybe another spot at the back end of this roster for a guy like that. So, again, we'll give you updates as things happen here at practice. Right now, Will Levis is out there with the threes. Nice little run off the edge there by Dominic Richardson. Did they just sign him, Parker?
Sounds like it.
Rookie out of Tulsa.
Yeah. I think that happened within the last week. Let me double check.
Yeah, I believe that makes sense because a couple of the running backs weren't out there on Saturday. Terry McCormick reporting that a couple of them still not out there today. So seeing some of the guys lower on the depth chart get some run with the threes. I did want to talk offensive line here because I think one of the big flips that we've seen throughout training camp has been right guard. I mean, a week ago, I don't think anyone would have told you that Fernando Carmona was going to be not just in the conversation at right guard, but the guy at right guard. And it seems like that's the way things have trended. He started with the ones, played all of the snaps with the ones back on Thursday night in San Francisco. Robert Saleh said that he has the inside track at that job as the starting right guard. So I want to know, does that make you feel better about the group as a whole, given that it seems like Fernando Carmona has just come out and won the job instead of it being one of those things at the end of training camp where it's like, all right, both these guys have been meh. Who are we going to give it to? It seems like Fernando Carmona has just come out here and said, this is my job. I'm taking it. I'm your starting right guard.
I love it for this reason. You have a veteran who was in Cincinnati the last 4 years, what was a starter, but like we've talked about, we've never really discussed Cincinnati having a good offensive line since they drafted Joe Burrow. And we've been bashing Cordell Volson and Austin Slotman and really the entire offensive line outside of Peter Skoronski. So seeing a young buck come in right away and he has that fire, he has that intensity just to come out and basically take this job with a veteran in front of him, that gives me a lot of I don't know if confidence is the right word or hope, but that's just something that you like to see. And I've been really impressed by him, run blocking, pass protection. He's certainly one of those guys that I did not expect to see this at this point in time, but has been very impressive. And I'm just going to say it right now. He will be the starter week 1. There's no doubt about it. I
mean, it seems like that's the way it's trending. With Cordell Volson not really playing at all in the first half when he was the guy given the first opportunity at right guard, I think this is a great thing for the Titans. Again, it's a guy winning the job, not just, all right, somebody has to play there. Who are we putting out there? It seems like Carmona has just gone out there and taken it. And I've said this throughout the offseason, the best possible scenario for the Titans at center and right guard is the young guys step up and take those positions, because that means you don't have a hole there moving forward. If Schlotman is your center throughout the entire year, which I think is more than likely at this point, and if Volson was your right guard for the entire year. You're looking at center and right guard as spots that you probably have to address in the offseason because none of those young guys, Slater, Coogan, Carmona, none of them stepped up and took that job throughout the year. Seeing that Carmona has done it before the season even starts, I think shows you that maybe they feel they have a long-term solution there, which any less hole on the offensive line makes you feel so much better because left tackle is something you have to address long-term at some point. Center is something that you have to address long-term at some point. Who knows about J.C. Latham at right tackle, although he's looked a lot better over the last couple of weeks. But if right guard is solidified and Fernando Carmona is going to be, even if he's just Nate Davis and is just your starter for his rookie contract and you move on, that's valuable for this team instead of having to go out and find somebody or use a draft pick on a right guard next year. If Carmona is the guy, that fills a hole for the next few seasons at the very least.
And we talk about all the time, you got to be able to, you don't have to find them every time, but the diamonds in the rough on day 3 of the draft and late in day 2. And Fernando Carmona was one of those guys where, drafted in day 3 and as it looks like it appears on the surface that he's going to be your starter come week 1 against the New York Jets. And that's something that you need, a team that's drafted so poorly over the last few years prior to Mike Borgonzi. And Mike Borgonzi, getting good value out of Chimdike, who's a 4th-round pick. 4th-round pick and Gunnar Helm, who's going to be your tight end 1 this year. Alec Aomender's really turned heads in camp, another 4th-round pick. Now you have guys like Fernando Carmona, who were drafted on day 3 that might start for you, probably going to start for you. Marcus Harris, 6th-round pick, your starting nickel. That's a pretty good hit rate, at least early on. Now we got to see how these guys play out once the season gets here, but early returns are that's a pretty solid hit rate.
Yeah, we talked about this either last week or the week before. Like, Borgonzi's not going to be judged based on his day 3 picks. You're judged based on what Cam Ward becomes, what Carnell Tate becomes. But so far, you've seen a lot of promise from the guys he's taken in rounds 4 through 7. Last year, it was the pass catchers, like you said, Marcus Harris in the 6th round. And if you get Fernando Carmona to be a quality starting right guard in year 1, that is huge for this offensive line and for this team that eliminates one of those building blocks that you need to go out and get. Now, you got to see him do it in games first, right? Like Fernando Carmona starting at right guard does not mean necessarily that he is a good starting right guard. You've got to see him go out and do it. But I will say early returns, what we saw on Thursday night, I love the word that Corey Curtis always uses. Fernando Carmona is a willing combatant. He is going to be violent. He is going to hit people. And he was all over the field on Thursday in those drives against the 49ers. So I think it is a very, very good development for this offensive line as a whole that Carmona has taken that job and seems to be solidifying himself as a starter.
It's very – I love it. I love seeing a fire out of those guys, especially rookies. I mean, coming in right away, nothing is guaranteed to you, especially being a day 3 pick, but having a veteran in front of you and just saying, I don't care, screw that, and I'm going to go take this job. And that's what he does. I was very surprised to see him trot out there with the starters in Santa Clara versus San Francisco on Thursday night. Right. I thought he would get a lot of playing time, and I knew he was in the competition for that spot at right guard. But when he came out there, and I was like, all right, this is Fernando Carmona. He's taking the bull by the horns. And, Saleh said that Cordell Volson and Jackson Slater, they're going to have opportunities to still compete for that right guard spot.
Yeah.
But he confirmed that Carmona has the inside track right now.
Yeah, and I mean, that's not a small deal that this 5th-round rookie has come in and not only surpassed a veteran like Cordell Volson, who was brought in to be that safety blanket in case the young guys didn't work out, but he also passed a guy who's been here for a year in Jackson Slater that by all accounts this team was pretty high on, and he surpassed him in just a couple of weeks of training camp. I think that's very promising for a young player heading into his rookie season. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. Our phone line's driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Cam Ward in his 2nd series, nice throw, got the ball out quick against to Carnell Tate over the middle a few minutes ago. Did have a ball deflected by Jeffrey Simmons at the line of scrimmage. They're out there again. Ward, it's so hard to tell whether he would have been sacked on some of these. Like, it's close, but there was pressure in his face. He did hit Wan'Dale Robinson there. So Ward so far, I think, has looked solid. No turnovers, been accurate with the ball, has gotten the ball out quick for the most part, outside of a play or two here or there, trying to build off what by all accounts was one of his better days of training camp back on Saturday, bouncing back from the tough performance in Santa Clara. 615-737-1025. We'd love to hear from you. Our phone line's driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. We'll continue to update you on what's going on at practice. We'll take your thoughts on the offensive line and much more. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelley with you on your Reaction Monday. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelley with you. I am live at Titans training camp here at Vanderbilt Health Football Center. Got a couple more segments left with you. Titans team drills continuing down below us here. First of three practices open to the media this week, including a joint practice with Seattle coming up on Friday. So far for Cam Ward, there's been some good, nice, quick throw over the middle to Carnell Tate, hit him in stride. He was able to get some yards after the catch. That's probably been his best throw of the day. Has been struggling getting the ball out quick, and there's been some pressure. Jeffrey Simmons has looked good so far today, as expected. And then his last throw of the last period was a little behind Wan'Dale Robinson, fell incomplete, but was close to being intercepted off the deflection. So it's been an okay day so far for Cam Ward. Again, nothing bad, but also outside of the one throw to Carnell Tate, I think it's been, average so far.
Well, you'd certainly like to see him build off of what he was able to do on Saturday. I don't know. You just want to see him make the right decisions, like Robert Salas talked about, Brian Daboll hitting the checkdowns. One of the things that he did in that first drive against San Francisco that really I was proud of him for was he hit the check down and, made it through his progression, hit the check down to Tajay Spears, and it ended up being a big gain. So that shows that when you're making the right decisions, it can turn into a huge profit. Now you just like to see him do it consistently. And when the layups are there, you got to hit them. You can't miss them by 5 feet.
Right. I think that was partially the concern on Thursday was he wasn't taking the layups, right? Like holding on to the ball too long, trying to hunt downfield, and then you get yourself in some tough situations, specifically like the one that led to the intentional grounding on Thursday. But you're right that when you decide to take the layups, you got to hit them. And the screen pass, obviously that's a design play to Wan'Dale Robinson out on the edge. You got to be able to hit the ones that are supposed to be easy. I got to say, Big Jeff is wrecking things today. This is the most I've noticed him in camp. He is, and the offensive line, the interior of the offensive line, I think maybe you could ask some questions about what they're doing, but this looks like Jeff just having one of his best days at camp so far. I mean, he is in the backfield on almost every single play.
Well, he also had a sack on Cam Ward on Saturday, or a would-be sack. They're not bringing anybody to the ground, but had a would-be sack on Cam Ward and was making a lot of plays on Saturday as well. So it's Big Jeff. What else would you expect?
Right. And hey, this is going to make the offensive line better when you have to face a guy like that in practice every single day. It's going to be easier when you're facing guys lower down on the totem pole among defensive tackles and when the season rolls around. A nice throw there. Cam Ward, outbreaking route, hit Wan'Dale Robinson. Accurate throw. Similar throw to the one that he tried to complete to Carnell Tate on Thursday and was a little bit off on. This one, quick, ball out, and it was right on him. So that's good to see from Cam Ward to Wan'Dale Robinson. I think that connection going to be pretty crucial so far this season. We saw them connect a couple of times out there in San Francisco in the preseason opener. Cam Ward, man, the pressure has been everywhere. Jeff is all over the field.
See, that's what I'm talking about with TD, though. When you have that pressure that's constantly in your lap, Cam Ward already, the way this offense is designed, get the ball out quick. That's why you brought in Wan'Dale Robinson to be kind of that safety blanket when you just need to get the ball out of your hands hot, get it out quick. He's a guy that is reliable as a pass catcher. But when you have that consistent pressure in your lap, that speeds up things. That speeds up the internal clock in Cam Ward's head, where sometimes he gets the ball out a little bit too quick, might take some risk over the middle, which can actually end up leading to bad things.
Yeah, again, I'm doing my best here to not do play-by-play, but also get you updates on what's going on. There would have been, I think, at least 2 sacks on that last series on Cam Ward and Big Jeff right in the middle of both of them. On the last one, they play it out. Like Cam rolled out of the pocket and he threw it, I'm going to guess 35 yards back over the middle of the field and found Elikiah Manor. So your typical Cam Ward play is Big Jeff flushed him out of the pocket.
Yep, that's going to be that's going to be a theme. That is going to be a theme, and we'll see how it is against the Seahawks, who, Leonard Williams, the ESPN list that Jeremy Fowler put out had him as the number 1 defensive tackle. We'll see how it looks going up against a different team, but a better defense than what San Francisco was able to put out on the field.
Right, yeah. They were running the 2s and 3s out there. So we'll see what Friday looks like in the joint practice. Mitch Trubisky is out there. I want to say he just got picked off. it's hard to see. We have a little bit of an obstructed view over here, but we'll bounce around here a little bit. We'll get you back with some updates on what Cam Ward's doing when he gets back out on the field. Did want to talk about some of the other storylines around the preseason. How about Ty Simpson's debut back on Saturday for the Rams? I mean, a guy who I think a lot of people viewed as a developmental project. He was going to be in that McVay system that obviously has been very helpful to young quarterbacks, Goff, and now you see what Stafford has been able to do to elevate his game since he's gotten there. So Ty Simpson, not a bad start for the 13th overall pick down there with the Rams.
Big win for Ty Simpson and his performance on Saturday versus the Chiefs. An even bigger win for Dan Orlovsky.
Yeah, that is true. Dan Orlovsky was he believes in two things: Pat McAfee's music and Ty Simpson's ability to play quarterback.
What a list. What a combination right there. No, Ty Simpson did look great. And Drew Aller looked fantastic for the Steelers. Carson Beck obviously didn't play in the latest preseason game versus the Raiders, but in the Hall of Fame game looked great. There was another young quarterback that looked good. I'm blanking on the name.
Yeah, a lot of the rookies look good in general. Like Mendoza had his moments. Drew Aller, of course, was good.
Yep.
And then, you got to see Ty Simpson. They played the Chiefs, correct? I didn't get to watch much of that game. It was kind of bouncing around on Saturday, but did see the stat line there was really impressive for Simpson. Speaking of quarterbacks, Falcons fans hate Tua Tagovailoa. Did you see some of the tweets about Tua from this past weekend and his Falcons debut?
I did see a little bit, yes.
There was a couple, some that I can't repeat on the air, but one of them was, this man makes 1st and 10 look like 1st and 35, and that made me laugh. I don't think Tua is going to be long for Atlanta. Those fans do not like him.
See, we know what Tua is. He's one of those guys that he has to get the ball out on time. When it comes to, making plays out of structure, out of rhythm, that's when he really starts to struggle. And obviously the injury concern has been a thing basically since he arrived in Miami. But we know what Tua is up to this point, and he's very limited as a quarterback. Now, there was that one year where he led the league in passing, but he's very limited. So I understand why Falcons fans aren't happy.
Yeah, I think it's a good start for Michael Penix possibly being the starter once he gets healthy there, because Tua did not look good. And finally on quarterbacks here with Cleveland, Watson was not great, but he was better than Shedeur Sanders. That interception from Sanders, he said the ball slipped, but I mean, that's not the first time we've seen that from Shedeur Sanders over the past year, where just open guy over the middle of the field and airmails him right into the hands of a safety.
Yeah, no, it was not pretty. I was able to watch a majority of Deshaun Watson, but that is it definitely didn't help his case. But Shedeur is going to get the start in week 2. Todd Monken already announced that Deshaun Watson was starting versus Chicago. Shedeur Sanders, he's going to start game 2, so he does have an opportunity to make up for his mistakes, to right his wrongs.
Right, 100%. And it's a long process, and I'm sure that they're going to go through the whole training camp preseason process to figure out who's going to be their starting quarterback. But I would say Deshaun Watson has the inside track there based on everything we've heard and everything we've seen coming out of Browns camp. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. Titans finishing up their first period of team drills. Overall, it wasn't a bad outing for Cam Ward. I mean, again, I think the pressure in his face pretty consistently from Jeffrey Simmons blew up a lot of opportunities for him to make plays. But when he did get the ball out fast, some accurate throws, hit Wan'Dale Robinson, hit Carnell Tate. So overall, again, maybe not the best sequence for Cam Ward today to start off practice, but a lot of that had to do with the just not having any time and Big Jeff wrecking plays over and over.
Yeah, that's what he does. So, that speeds up everything for Cam Ward, that interior pressure, which is going to be a strength. The Titans have placed a lot of emphasis on not just the interior defensive line, but interior offensive line as well with the Skoronski extension. So that's why you pay guys like that to be able to try to counteract that interior pressure coming from defensive tackles.
615-737-1025 is the phone number. We'll continue to give you updates on the Titans as they are out on the practice field today. We are live at Vanderbilt Health Football Center. We got one more segment with you on this Monday. We'll come back and we'll continue to talk Titans. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelley, next man up, 102.5 The Game. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Wrapping up the show on this Reaction Monday. Titans hitting the practice field. We are live from Vanderbilt Health Football Center. First of 3 days out here this week. We'll be back out here on Wednesday for practice. That one not open to the fans. And then Friday, joint practice with Seattle. So excited to see what that looks like. No better way to test yourselves than against the reigning Super Bowl champions. Again, Titans wrapped up their first period of team drills. I would say defense won the day so far. Again, there's still more to come. But overall, I'd say defense got the better of the offense there in the team drills, especially in the trenches. I mentioned it in the last segment. Jeffrey Simmons basically unblockable during the first team reps there. So good to see, but also maybe a little bit concerning. A lot of those came matched up over the center and right guard spots, which obviously have been the big question marks throughout the offseason for the Titans.
Well, the defense got the better of the offense too on Saturday, despite the bounce back day from Cam Ward, because overall the offense was the side of the ball that was doing push-ups at the end of practice.
Yeah, it's sometimes hard to tell. We couldn't see the 7-on-7 stuff quite as much from over here. Again, we've got a little bit of a wall blocking that side of the field, but from all the accounts on Twitter from some of the reporters who were down there, the offense basically dominated the 7-on-7 one-on-one portion of practice. So good start there, but with the trenches actually being a factor and having the offensive line, defensive line, I would say it was a win for the defense through the first period of team drills.
It's amazing what the offense can do when you take away Jeffrey Simmons, you take away John Franklin Myers, and you take away that pass rush.
Yeah, it is weird when Cam Ward doesn't have people bearing down on him. He can make a lot more plays. But yeah, and again, you're not taking anybody to the ground, especially the quarterbacks. Obviously, he did make some plays even after it probably would have been blown dead for a sack. Made some plays on the run to Calvin Ridley to Alec Iamaner. But the best we've seen from Cam Ward so far today at practice, when he's gotten the ball out quick, the ball has been accurate. And that was one of the big issues on Thursday, was some of the passes where he hit the top of his drop and let it fly just were offline. The throw on the out route to Carnell Tate, the quick screen to Wan'Dale Robinson. He had a nice in-breaking crossing route from Carnell Tate and a little quick out route to Wan'Dale Robinson were both right on the money, allowed them both to catch it in stride and maybe make a play after the catch. So I would say overall, accuracy-wise, Cam Ward has looked good today. Did have one throw behind a receiver, but the issue has been he hasn't been able to get the ball out quick enough. And I would, again, ballparking from what we've seen, I would guess 4 or 5 sacks through 3 to 4 team drills, periods of team drills so far.
Yeah, no, I agree. It is good though that Cam Ward had a modest day and wasn't, it wasn't too much up and down considering where he was on Saturday, looking good. The bottom didn't fall out completely with him, but yeah, I think this week in general, just you talk about the biggest litmus test of all time, bringing in the Super Bowl champs, right? So it's going to be a very good challenge for him.
Yeah, and again, still more to come today. Practice is not over. We'll see what Cam Ward does down the stretch when you get into more of the call-it periods here, but again, not a bad day for Cam Ward. Hasn't turned the ball over, hasn't been inaccurate. It's just been struggling to get the ball out against the pressure of this Titans defensive front. But you're right that Friday is going to be a really big test. Sunday, I don't know how much the Seahawks are actually going to play their starters. All 3 of the Titans preseason opponents, I wonder if they're really going to get that many opportunities to play the starters in a game situation, because all of those teams have high aspirations. Seahawks won the Super Bowl last year. The Bears believe they should be in that conversation this year. The 49ers, especially with all the injuries they had, of course, really weren't going to play a lot of their starters on Thursday night. So it's going to be those joint practices where the Titans are going to get their best work in. Friday is going to be really intriguing to see how Cam Ward and this offense respond against one of the better defensive units, if not the best defensive unit in the entire NFL.
That is going to be more of a challenge for Cam Ward to navigate, because you're going to have everybody at full strength. I think there's more value for the starters when you're, going up against the other team starters in a joint practice, because in the preseason we saw against San Francisco, you're going up against backups. Now, there's a lot of value for guys fighting to get a roster spot, and there's certainly value in the joint practices, but if we're just talking about the starters, I believe you maximize the value in these joint practices, and that Friday scrimmage is going to be awesome. Or the joint practice, I'm very excited to be out there.
Yeah, I hate it. I have to be out on Friday, so I'm going to miss that one. But it's
be back for Chicago, though, right?
Yes, I'll be back for Chicago, so that'll be cool to see the final joint practice and get to see what the Titans can do against a team like that. I would say, just looking on paper, the Seahawks, of course, being the Super Bowl champs, are probably the toughest test that the Titans are going to face. But that Bears offense is going to be an interesting one with how many weapons that they have and the concerns we have around the Titans secondary. How are they going to hold up when you've got Luther Burden's injured, so he may not be back by then. But when you've got all of those weapons, Adunze and Colston Loveland, and I'm missing somebody. They lost DJ Moore, but the Bears in that offense, I think, is going to be a fun test for this Titans defense coming up next week.
Yeah, you still got Cole Kmet in there. You have DeAndre Swift and Kyle Monungai, who's a great 1-2 punch for Chicago at running back. Extending Darnell Wright, making him the highest paid right tackle in the NFL right now, or league history too. So that offense is definitely going to be very challenging for the secondary. But the defense, they don't pose as much of a pass rush threat. That was something they struggled with last year, and plus they're just getting kind of hammered with some of these injuries. Former Seahawk Kobe Bryant, who they brought in to be their star safety next to rookie Dylan Thieneman, he's hurt, and they hope to get him back for the playoffs, but he's going to miss at least what it sounds like all the regular season.
Yeah, it's the injuries, like we said earlier, they've been a problem around the league so far. I mean, it feels like there's been a higher rate. Maybe there's not, but that's the feeling I've had. But we'll see what the Seahawks and Bears look like as they come in here. Again, Seahawks coming in this week. I'm really excited to see how the Titans match up. I think you could tell last week, both in the preseason game and in the joint practice, that the Titans still have a lot of work to do to get into the conversation, right? Like, not saying that they need to be on an equal playing field with all three of those teams who I think in their buildings all have Super Bowl aspirations, but to be more competitive than they were last week. I'm excited to see what it looks like this weekend against Seattle, because that offense, you've got Cooper Kupp, you've got Jackson Smith and Jigba, and you've got Sam Darnold running the show. Then on defense, you got the new highest paid cornerback in NFL history. 4 years, $132 million. Was that the number for Devin Witherspoon?
Yeah, highest paid corner in NFL history.
I mean, just an insane number for Devin Witherspoon, $33 million a year. So that's going to be a good test for both sides of the football on Friday in the joint practice, where you expect you're going to see the starters for that Seahawks team. If I had to make a guess, I don't think the starters are going to play much for Seattle on Sunday night.
I would doubt it. They might get a series, maybe two, but they're not going to play. So when it comes to, and I have no idea what Chicago's strategy will be, but when it comes to these first two opponents, like I said, you're maximizing the starter on starter potential in these joint practices, because it's best on best. And Robert Saleh, I mean, he's throwing his team to the wolves right away. I mean, you get San Francisco, who is they've been a contender for the last few years. Injuries have kind of said otherwise, but they're still in the top tier of the NFL. The Seahawks winning the Super Bowl last year, and the Bears, who were in the final 8 when it came into the playoffs last year. So they're getting thrown in the fire right away.
Yes, they are. It is a gauntlet of preseason opponents, which I think is good. I mean, you get to see what the top of this league looks like, and hopefully will prepare you better for when you hit the regular season. And again, we've pounded this one to death at this point. Week 1 against the Jets is just so important for the morale around this city and this locker room, for the Titans to get off to a good start against the Jets. Appreciate everybody who's chimed in on the text line today. Been a lot of good stuff. 4312 does remind me. He says, almost forgot to ask, Jake, did you see my St. Louis Cardinals rookie Joshua Baez hitting 3 home runs in his debut?
Yes, thank you for the reminder.
Yeah, I'm glad he brought – yeah, I'm sorry. That was against your Cubs. But that's unreal. I don't know if I've ever seen anything like it, of 3 home runs in a debut. That I saw Chip Carey said that it's one of the coolest things that he's ever broadcast in his career. 3 home runs in a single debut. That's like storybook stuff, stuff you see in the movies.
They're wanting to put, I think they were talking about yesterday on the broadcast, either his gloves, the gloves that he wore, or his cleats or his spikes in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I mean, maybe greatest offensive debut in MLB history. There's only been a handful of 4 home run games in the league. 3 home runs in your MLB debut is ridiculous. So,
it was in his first 3 at-bats too, right?
Yeah. Like, he had opportunities later on to just crazy stuff from Joshua Baez. So I'm glad that 4312 reminded us of that. Again, we're out of Titans practice. They've been doing some special team stuff, so haven't had many updates for you, but continue to keep it tuned here throughout the rest of the day. We'll have updates for you on what the Titans are looking like here at practice. First of 3 practices here this week, leading up to Sunday's preseason game number 2 against Seattle, including that joint practice on Friday against the Seahawks. Tomorrow, we are back in studio. Nick Frazier will be with us. Andrew Allegretta going to join us in studio from 11 to 12 to talk some Vandy football. Fall camp is in full swing. They're scrimmaging. We'll get Andrew's thoughts on the Commodores as they gear up for that opener against Austin Peay coming up in a little over 2 weeks. Football season getting closer and closer. But that does things for us today. Do stick around. Chase and Big Joe are coming up next. We will rejoin Chase and Big Joe with an interview at some point once practice wraps up. They're getting back into team stuff now. So we will be back with you in a little bit. But keep it right here. Titans training camp continuing. Chase and Big Joe are coming up next. Keep it tuned right here on 102.5 The Game.